The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey, what's up? This is Jeff Cobb, and you're listening to Keepin' It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the Ace of Podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review Battle in the Valley and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Please support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the network's podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/social suplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Young boy, how you doing, man?
I had to unmute myself. I'm doing well. We're here. Yeah.
Yep. Ready for another episode of Keeping It Strong Style.
You know, let's just get this out of the way before we start. I'm not doing well. All right. And here's why. We attended the NWA taping in Tampa, Florida last night. And my God, the residual effects. I mean, this was literally the worst professional level wrestling show or TV taping I've ever attended in my entire life. And I need to make public apologies to everyone that I invited, Peter, Zach, and you, Jeremy. I am sorry that I $10 was too much to pay for those shows. They should have comped our tickets afterwards and said, I'm sorry.
Here's your money back.
Here's your money back.
Oh, yeah, dude, that was rough, especially for a quote-unquote major league promotion. And I mean, it seemed like it was a few years ago. NWA was doing cool stuff. You know, you had 10 pounds of gold, doing all this stuff of like Nick Aldis and Cody and bringing all these guys in. And now they're inside the little PBS studio here in Tampa, Florida. All kinds of yahoos on this card that I've never seen or heard of wrestle before. Like, I feel like every guy would come out, you'd be like, "Who is that? Where is that guy?" I'm like, I have no idea.
There were so many issues. Like they weren't announcing the wrestlers, so unless you happen to know who they were,
well,
you didn't.
They were, but the speaker was so low, you couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, so I didn't know who half the fucking wrestlers were. Someone would come out and they'd get cheered, and then they would start kind of like acting a little bit heelish in the middle of the match. And then by the time it was over, they were getting full on booed. And like, we were seeing like face heel shifts like it was WrestleMania 13 all night. Like it was hard to tell who was what was going on. I mean, there were literally matches, Jeremy, like multiple matches where I was like, those motherfuckers didn't do anything that I couldn't do. And I've had 2 training matches. This was very low level. Yeah, and there was one guy who wrestled he wrestled Braun.
Yeah.
And I thought he looked good. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, oh, he's the future, but he was the one guy that was like, he looks professional, he's got some promise, but I don't even know who the fuck he was because they didn't announce who anybody was. Another issue was they have this awesome stage setup. So you're like, oh, that looks pretty professional, even though like being in the crowd, there's only a couple hundred people. You're like, it's not a great setup, but at least that looks professional. So you're thinking that the wrestlers are going to make their entrances from there. No, they're coming from the literally the hallway, which is the only
the
entrance.
The same one that the fans are walking.
Yeah. So if I've got to go and take a leak, which I did, because I don't know, I get antsy at wrestling shows. So like, I got to like leave. I have to walk in front of the cameras, in front of all of the wrestlers, in front of all the people watching, and then walk in the hallway where the boys and girls are sitting there. And they're like, what do you need? And I'm like, bro, I'm trying to go to the bathroom. Like, the fuck? What do you mean? What do I need? Like, this is not an entrance. This is a hallway for the PBS studio.
This is Big Bird's bathroom.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. And then they didn't have music. I guess they're gonna put the music in for all the wrestlers in post.
I don't think they use music at all on those NW
wrestling shows,
on the power shows. Yeah.
So they just come out like that. Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad.
Yeah. I thought Kobe Carino looked pretty good.
Yeah.
He's been doing some good stuff on the indies, but yeah, there was not.
The show went long. I don't know why it needed to go long.
Bro, at one point the guy's like, we have several more matches left.
Yeah, they're getting down to the end. He's like, no worries, folks. We only have several more to go. We're like, what does that mean? Several. And he's like, I didn't keep count. Like, it's a shit show. And I've been to a lot of TV tapings, right? And it's not uncommon for in between the episodes for them to like stop and make you aware we're starting the second episode, we're starting the third episode, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the shows are pretty seamless. It's literally not that different from being at a live wrestling experience. This was not that. Like, they're like doing production and long pauses and like letting you know, breaking the suspense and letting you know, like, this shit's not real. Like, we're shooting a TV show right now. You're just like, what?
Yeah, pretty much after every match, it was like, a long pause. You hear the guy talking to production. He's like, "Can you hear me? Like, give me the countdown."
Yeah, yeah. Like, what the fuck? I don't know, man. It was bad, really, 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 really bad, and it's been affecting me all day. So,
well, yeah, I highly recommend that nobody just don't go to an NWA taping.
Yeah, don't go to that.
Oh man,
I went to see my friends and they were in the main event. We left before the main event because I was like, all right, I can't. We already did 3 hours. I can't do any more. Any more of this.
Yeah,
this is bad.
All right, well, let's talk about a great show that happened this weekend. New Japan.
I didn't see any great shows this weekend.
You don't think this was a great show?
Nah, I'm just playing.
New Japan Pro Wrestling's Battle in the Valley that happened this past Saturday from the San Jose Civic had an attendance of 2,147, sold out house here for Battle.
Sold out. Suck it, Mercedes.
Don't need money.
I guess Shinny-Han don't need money. Sell out a 2,000 seat building in San Jose, But Tanahashi and Okada can't go on last because Mercedes sold out the building, right?
Oh man. So there was 2 pre-show matches. Both I did not see. Did you watch the pre-show?
Bro, I didn't watch it. I thought you watched it.
No, I did not.
I was gonna come on here and be like, I forgot to watch this. So Jeremy, give us the
well, see, I forgot this show was starting at 10 p.m. Eastern our time.
Yeah,
I thought it was gonna be like 8 p.m. start time, and I was like, oh wow, like I need to stay up. So I watched Collision from 8 to 10, and then watched Battle in the Valley right afterwards. So I did not watch it.
I went to bed, bro, because I watched it the next morning. So I was just like, I can't do that. Even on a weekend, like starting a show at 10, ending at like 1, 2 in the morning. Like, nah, I'm not doing that. So I mean, I can tell you, I'll look at the good folks over at Cage Match.
I have the results. Matt Vandegrift defeated Goldie 6 minutes and 9 seconds. That's a strong survivor. So Matt Vandegrift continues his streak, and then Stephanie Vaquer defeated Via Van to become #1 contender for the Strong Women's Championship.
Yeah, but what are the cage match scores, Jeremy? You just got results. I've got scores.
All right, tell
colors.
What's the scores?
So it looks like Matt Vandegrift and Goldie wrestled to a 4.68 average match. That's a good little 2 3/4 star match. It's not bad. 2.5. The top comment is a decent little opening match with not a lot riding on it. I hadn't seen Goldie before, but he seems talented, as does Matt Vandegrift.
Whoa. A lot not riding on it. It was a strong survival. The loser is gone. Like,
I don't know. I'm just telling you what they wrote. Looks like the Stephanie Vacour versus Viva Vaughn match was a little better received. Makes sense. They got a little bit more time. 6 minutes, 6.12 on cage match. That's probably like a little 3-star affair.
Gentlemen's or ladies 3.
Ladies 3, gentle ladies 3. The top comment, which is pretty bad, was this was an okay match, if a little unspectacular. There were some nice spots in here, but it never really felt like Viva Vaughn, who had last seen with TJPW, was in it with a chance. Stephanie Vacour got most of the offense, and Vaughn's comeback was only short-lived. Makes sense. Little job match for a job girl. Stephanie Vacour, she's a known commodity, number 1 contender. So, yeah. Maybe I'll go back and watch this. Maybe I won't, but we'll never talk about it on this show again. So.
Oh man. So the main card opened up with a 6-man tag. We had Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser, the Samoan Werewolf, Jacob Fatu, and the Roughneck Shota Umino, defeating the Team Filthy team of Jarrell Nelson, Royce Isaacs, and Filthy Tom Waller, 8 minutes and 59 seconds.
I really like this match, Jeremy. In fact, I'll just say I really like this show across the board. And there's certain matches where, I'm not going to give them maybe the highest score in the world from my own perspective, but in terms of like the flow of the show and the variety and the presentation and just the vibes, like this was an awesome show, like a really enjoyable and fun show to watch. Dare I say it, I liked the show better than Wrestle Kingdom. That's just my personal prerogative.
Hot takes.
It's not the Dome, mind you, of course. But in terms of just like sitting down to watch a wrestling show, this was fun.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine if you put this show in a Tokyo Dome atmosphere?
I don't know if it would work necessarily. Well, you'd have to like really do a lot of legwork to get a lot of these unknown commodities to the domestic crowds over. But yeah, it was an awesome show to watch, and this match was just fun. They last week we kind of complained about the whole Team Filthy and Fred Rosser thing, and we were like, last time we saw these guys in Strong, they were showing each other respect and giving each other handshake. And that didn't lead anywhere. Now they're on opposite ends. So what's the deal? Well, apparently, not saying they listen to this show, but they had that in mind. So there's definitely some storylines that are like through lines that are in the Strong universe still that are running parallel to New Japan proper. And basically, Team Filthy is having dissension where Jarrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs, the West Coast Wrecking Crew, they're not really vibing with Filthy Tom Lawler showing respect to their arch nemesis, Fred Rosser, and they let that be known all throughout the match. And there's a lot of tension between those two parties. And then all the meanwhile, you had Jacob Fatu just doing flips, showing why he is just awesome. Like I'll tell you right now, he's the best member of the Bloodline living that's wrestling active right now, period.
Yeah, he got a great reaction from the crowd. He did a ton of indie work in the California area, so he was super over. Crowd was super into him, and he's doing a lot of cool stuff, like you mentioned, a lot of moonsaulting, throwing people around, just very imposing in the ring. So yeah, he looked really good, and yeah, we saw a lot of miscommunication, a lot of dissension, like you mentioned, between West Coast Wrecking Crew and Billy Tom, arguing on the tags. Tom was trying to wrestle a little bit more clean, and these guys were, doing the normal Team Filthy tactics. They were really taking it to Fred Rosser, and Tom didn't like that. So that caused all kind of issues in communication for them, which broke down to Shooter getting the Death Rider on Jarrell Nelson. 1, 2, 3. Shooter, Rosser, and Jacob Fatu get the win.
Yeah, they picked up the win here. Umino had the big entrance, got a great reaction from the crowd. And at the end of the match, Fred Rosser and Filthy Tom Lawler, they started teasing more, kind of tension between those two. Obviously, they've got a long storied history with one another in the Strong brand. And then they slapped each other, kind of echoing similar, segment that we saw earlier this past last year with Nagata and Suzuki, where they don't really like each other, but they respect each other. They slapped each other and then they shook hands. And then that wasn't really going to vibe for West Coast Wrecking Crew. So they kind of took matters into their own hands at that point.
Yeah, I watched the post-match promo on the backstage, and they're like, yo, we cut this man's hair twice. He said that he said he was gonna rape you in front of your family, and you're gonna shake his hand. You're gonna shake his hand. Like,
I mean, they're not wrong. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, they got a point. So yeah, that happened, and then as Shooter was walking to the back, Bushi jumped out the crowd and started attacking him. But taking the mask off, it actually was Jack Perry, Real Glass Jack Perry. Cry Me a River, took the mask off, big beard, laid out Shota Umino, got in the ring, took out his AEW contract, ripped it
the original
and ripped it up. So it seems like Jack Perry, I guess, is going to be making a stay in New Japan for a bit, maybe.
Bro, he was in Wembley, got into the fight with CM Punk. DJ Woo Kid told us all about it this past couple weeks ago. And Jack Perry got suspended. And while he was suspended, I imagine that he pulled a little espionage action and broke into the offices in Jacksonville when, after hours, swooped in, found his original contract, evaded the police, and was able to make it to San Jose with his original contract just so he could rip it up, publicly so everybody could see it. And Tony Khan was aghast because he was like, damn it, called Mega, and he was like, do we still have the original? Do we still have the original? I will say this. I liked this angle a lot. I'm a big mark for any time someone is going to put a mask on and then jump somebody out of the crowd. You don't know who it is, whether that's Jericho, whether that's Sting. I love when guys do this shit. So, and bro, this angle got the wrestling world talking for 6 hours. And then now it's done. No one's talking about it anymore. But for those 6 hours, everybody was big mad about this whole thing with Jack Perry. The New Japan fans were mad. The AEW fans were mad. The Jack Perry apologists were mad. The Punk fans were mad. Like there was nobody happy. It seemed like that this was happening, but I liked it.
Rich Latta was happy.
Yeah, but it was cool. We haven't seen Jack Perry since the incident with Punk, leading back to All In at Wembley. He's been suspended. He hasn't. Basically, we've been told that he was suspended. Nobody in the media that's been called on any of these press conferences have had the balls to ask Tony Khan, when is Jungle Boy expected to return?
Right.
Which you would think that should be a question that the press should be asking him. I don't know. But I digress. But yeah, he showed up, attacked Shota Umino. I saw a lot of discourse about people being like, Umino sitting here thinking like, House of Torture, back in Japan, put that in the rear view. I can relax. Make it to America, have a nice little fun little opener and not really worry too much. And then, Jack Perry is like, nah,
not today.
Not on my watch. So basically, from what I understand is Jack Perry is now the leader of House of Torture America.
Yeah. We had some questions here. So front of the show and fellow social suplexer, Imp says, I already know Young Boy's reaction to comparing this Jack Perry excursion to a certain Ungovernable Lads one, But with me setting this in, now the Kiss Boys listenership will too. Josh, what about this Naito excursion for Perry, huh?
I did not make that analogy. That was Rich Latta. And I personally, I do see the comparison points, but I also think that there are differences all the same. I guess part of it is like, we don't really know why this is happening. Like, is this... The nice thing about it is they're kind of blending the kayfabe and the reality. So, this guy shows up, rips up his contract, puts on a
scapegoat.
He puts on the armband and it says scapegoat, and he clearly is alluding to the idea that he was scapegoated incorrectly during the whole thing with Punk. And there's a lot of people that kind of feel that that's the case. And now it's like, is he really leaving AEW? Is he on a quasi excursion? Is this, I don't know. I remember they did something similar to this a couple years ago when Sammy Guevara was supposed to be leaving AEW, quote unquote, during the Impact partnership. And he went to Impact and it blew up and fell apart very quickly. And he basically, I think, made 2 dates, 1 match, and was back in no time. So I don't know if hopefully this isn't that. Hopefully this is something that actually has longevity and meaningful purpose behind it. But I don't know if it is like just a one-off, if we're just going to see this guy do strong dates, or is he going to be exclusive to New Japan for a period of time until they're able and willing to work him back into the AEW fold? I don't know.
Yeah, and, we don't have the full cards for New Beginning and Sapporo night 1 and 2. There's still some slots open on those cards. So, yeah, I mean, they could slot him in on this February tour, get him kind of in the mix there. Or, yeah, maybe it's something where it's just going to be he's on Strong, and this is all to build up him versus Shooter at Windy City Riot.
Maybe this is the make good for the weakness that's been portrayed between the New Japan and AEW partnership. And so basically New Japan had to give AEW Will Ospreay, Jay White, Juice Robinson, Aussie Open,
Kevin Kelly.
But we get Jungle Boy. All right. That's the make good. So it's not quite so one-sided. It's like, 85-15. We get the 15. That's Jungle Boy. Jack Perry. One thing I am a fan of Jack Perry. I don't think that I personally have the same I don't see the same potential in him that a lot of his bigger supporters do, where they think he's like the future of the industry and he's gonna be a future top guy. Like, I think we've already seen 5 years of him at this point, and I think that upper mid Carter is like his glass ceiling, and I think we've already kind of seen him hit that ceiling. I don't see, when I look at the guy, I don't see, and I've said this on this show, I think most recently probably dating back to when he was going to face Sonata for the title. I think he's an incredible talent, and I think that he's got a lot of years left in the industry, and there's a lot of great stories you can tell with him. It's just like, I don't see him as like world champion, top guy, future of the division, that I don't see that with Jack Perry. But I'm totally fine with him coming to New Japan and working new programs and doing something different. And this reminds me in many ways of like what was going on with like Brian Pillman in the 90s. So it's very fun. It's kind of exciting. Hopefully the follow through is done well. One thing I will say though, and this is the last negative thing I'll say about Jack Perry, that beard, bro. I get what they're doing, and I understand. And it's like, you can try all you want to grow a giant beard and look as deranged and wild man as possible, but bro, he does not have the face for that type of beard. Like, he reminds me of Haley Joel Osment when he was the first time you ever saw Haley Joel Osment as an adult with a beard, and you're like, oh, that's a kid from Sixth Sense. That's Jungle Boy with a beard, bro. Like, he doesn't look tough. Like, I'm sorry.
Oh man, yeah, I think Jack Perry's great wrestler. Definitely a guy you'd want on your roster. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be a future world champion. Maybe not. But he's a very talented guy, and yeah, I'm excited to see kind of where this is going to lead, especially if he's going to do some dates in Japan. It's a fresh guy to have in there, a fresh opponent. We get some new matchups, and yeah, I think it could be very exciting.
New Top Junior.
Top Junior. This man had a IWGP World Heavyweight title match last year. This man's a heavyweight.
So did Hiromu, but guess what? Junior.
So next question here. Lee Chang is Bay 2. Are you guys ready for Jungle Mania to run wild over New Japan? Cry me a river, brother. Jack Perry's gimmick in New Japan should be starting fights with people that are leaving the company. Like if Tama is leaving the company, Jack Perry should just be his final feud/match, and once he leaves, he takes credit for it.
I mean, I think we're about to see Tama's last match in the company this coming weekend. So I did see something online where there was have you seen the thing with Tiger Woods where he brings the person in, gives them dap and everything like that? Someone's like, this is Kenta when he sees Jack Perry.
Yeah.
Like, big dog, bring it in.
Then Barry Walsh says, at least the AEW partnership is back to being level with them getting Aussie Open, Jay, Will, etc. But now we got Jack Perry. How long do you think he hangs around before the recall?
That's a tough question. I don't really know. I mean, you have to take into consideration how New Japan is organized, and it's, a by-tour process. Do I see him sticking around and working, several tours back to back and being in Japan all that time? Probably not. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see him doing a quasi part-time thing where maybe he's working the strong shows. Maybe he is coming in for some of those bigger dates for the tours, and maybe he's working the 1 or 2 road to just before those shows to kind of show face. But that's the exciting thing with this. It's hard to project what this is going to be. I know some people are hoping it's going to be prolonged 6 months. He goes through the G1, wins a title, blah, blah. Maybe that is the plan, but we just really don't know. I could also see it being a literal one-off, and then he goes back to AEW, and then maybe it's just sort of part-time, sort of when they want to call him in every now and again, not unlike like Lance Archer, once or twice a year. Could be that too. So it's hard to say right now.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's really a spot, quote unquote, for him on AEW TV right now. There's a lot of top heels, a lot of stories going on right now. He was speculated to potentially be one of the people who could be the devil, but he was not the devil or a part of that group. So I don't think there's a huge rush to get him back on AEW TV right now. So I could see him, doing some New Japan stuff for a while, doing some big matches, and then maybe goes back later in the year.
I did, when I was talking with Rich about this, he did say provided he sticks around and he's on the tours, this would be the first time in years where he's working multiple times per week, and that might advance him. But I kind of disagree a little bit. I don't know that the in-ring is so much what needs to be focused when it comes to Jungle Boy. I think to me, it's more projecting the star presence, connecting with the crowd. I mean, I know that he connects on the white meat babyface level, but it's only going to get you so far. Nobody was, and just so it makes sense, it's people liked, who's an example? I'll just throw a name out there, Brian Pillman in the early 90s. People liked Brian Pillman, but no one was calling for Brian Pillman to carry WCW and be the world champion. It's kind of where Jungle Boy was, a guy that people like, opening act, but not someone where it's he should be in the spot that Hangman Adam Page or, Kenny Omega are in, and he needs to be the world champion. People weren't talking about this guy that way. I think that he needs to figure out what his thing is going to be moving forward, and maybe time spent apart in New Japan would get a buzz about him. And maybe this could be a really good learning excursion, not unlike Naito or Nakamura's time in Mexico. But and maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. That'd be pretty cool if that's the case.
Yeah, I think that would really work out for him and would help him out a lot. And kind of flush out this new scapegoat, wild man kind of character, and then come back to AEW to be a top guy.
Make him the leader of the Bull Club.
Hey,
got long hair, white man.
Works for a lot of other white men, right?
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next matchup here. We had Mascarada and Volador Jr. defeating our good friend Rocky Romero and Soberano Jr. 11 minutes and 11 seconds.
I love these lucha matches, man. I don't know. I'm very excited for Fantasticamania tour coming up. And this was like a little bit of a preview for that. But like, I understand that when you watch Strong these days, the way that everything's arranged, they're not completely like, you're not getting exported the 100% true, authentic New Japan production and experience, but that's kind of okay. That Strong is its own thing. Mm-hmm. And I love that they're incorporating guys from the CMLL partnership to come in and have the one, and if it'd be different if the whole card was overrun with this stuff, but it's not. It's like you're getting one Lucha Libre offering match, and it's really fun. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's some of the best high flyers. Now, there was a couple botches here. I've said on the air before, I think Mascara Dorada can be a little green sometimes and miss his mark, but when he's on, he's like one of the most dynamic guys they have.
Yeah, he is incredible. He did a lot of really cool stuff in this match, and I need to see him in Super Juniors this year.
He fucking rules. Soberano rules. Volador and Rocky, been in the game forever, and they're both excellent at what they do as well. And this was just fun. And, it's also good to kind of get a feeling for what this new heel Soberano Jr. character is. And, this is somewhat a continuation of the ongoing story that these four guys have had going in Mexico. So, kind of transporting the CMLL story into New Japan Strong. I like that. This was fun. And then combining that, coming off of the high of Jacob Fatu being the big man doing all the flips, and then you come to this and like it's even flippier. Like this was fun. And I was like, we're on pace. This is better than Wrestle Kingdom right now.
Volador Jr. hit a Canadian Destroyer on Rocky to get the win. In the post-match promos, Volador and Mascarada were talking about Fantasticamania, and they're like, Rocky, how about you face each of us one-on-one during the tour? So it seems like they've thrown a challenge out there that we could get, Rocky versus Mascarada and Rocky versus Volador at Fantasticamania.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and I think, the one thing I want to see is... this is a little off topic, but I want to see Xandicon Jr. return for Fantasticamania Tour. But with the way that they've really kind of expanded this partnership over the past year, with the different inclusions in their tournaments and, advancing Titan in the Super Juniors and him being a member of LIJ, plus everything going on with Rocky and then showcasing these guys on the Strong shows. This is like the strongest that the CMLL New Japan partnership has felt in years. Mm-hmm. And it feels like Fantasticamania is going to be a little bit more stakey. It's going to have some more stakes to it than it normally does,
Yeah. And on one other note, Soberano was wearing a black tiger mask in tribute to his partner, Rocky. They talked about that in the post-match promo, and Soberano respecting Rocky and calling Rocky the face of CMLL. We had two questions here. At Oscar Rooney says this was there was a lot of surprising stuff at Battle in the Valley, but was Volador winning with only one Canadian Destroyer the most surprising?
I couldn't tell you that. I've seen quite a bit of Volador Jr., but I've never taken note that he hits multiple Canadian Destroyers. I don't know if you've noticed that, Jeremy.
No, I think he's just talking in general that
he's the only one that hit one in the match.
That people do Destroyers all the time. It doesn't end the match, but Volador just does one and it's game over.
Well, when you're a master of your craft, you know how to. Everybody can throw a right hand, but if you really know what you're doing, that's lights out. Yeah. There's a reason that Shawn Michaels hit that sweet chin music, and his super kick was superior to all the other super kicks. And
just like master Jake the Snake, his DDT, so nobody's been able to master it quite like he has.
Well, I'll just say, when I was in the gym, I was hitting people with the DDT. They're going to sleep. That was it.
Dr. Lariat asks, do you guys believe Soberano Jr. will be used as a heavyweight threat or like Mascara Dorada before him barely being used?
I think he's going to be a heavyweight guy, honestly. I don't think that, one thing I will say, to contradict some of my statements earlier, I know I'm excited about the New Japan CMLL relationship, but thus far in their history, they have not shown the capability to really incorporate a luchador in a meaningful way in the company. There are a few notable exceptions, like when they had La Sombra win the IC belt and, obviously Dragon Lee. But even that stuff was all very short-lived and not too super meaningful. So they're high in Soberano Jr. He's signed. I think he's going to be a heavyweight, but I don't know what the utilization's really going to be,
Right. We won't know until we see it play out. So moving on to the next match, we had the IWGP Global Champion, leader of the War Dogs, David Finlay, defeating TJP 13 minutes and 7 seconds.
The ass swing.
Oswong. The Oswong TJP.
That's not his name, bro. It's Ass Wang.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. You know what? This match was really good. Like, this was probably one of the best David Finlay matches. And don't get me wrong, I think TJP we've extolled his praises so many times on the show, but he's not usually put in a position to be like a top worker in the company. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And most of David Finlay's best singles performances have been with guys that are in some way superior to him in term, or at least perception wise, but like Jay White, Will Ospreay, Tomohiro Ishii, like those are the three guys that come to my mind when I think of people he's wrestled one-on-one that he's had really standout performances with. And him and TJP had what I thought was one of his strongest singles matches. I thought it was much better than most of his G1 output was this past year. Just really enjoyed it. Both guys seemed very motivated. Crowd was into it. It seemed pretty clear that Finlay was going to win here. But, Finlay, his character, it's up and down. Like the last time we saw him wrestle, like, let's say Tangaloa, he was doing all this cheating stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, kind of reverted back to the hard-nosed, no-nonsense badassery sort of gimmick, which I thought is better, but it also doesn't fit the gimmick of what he's supposed to be. So I'm still a little confused in that aspect, but if the matches are going to be like this, I can come back around on Finlay because the wrestling was great. And then obviously TJP, he's awesome. I can make fun of the gimmick of the ass swing, but he himself is just an incredible worker. And they went out there and they had a really, I felt like kind of underappreciated, great little match.
Yeah, it was really good. And the crowd was really hot for TJP. The closing stretch was really good. TJP spits the red Oswong mist in his eyes, hits the catch 2-2 knee strike for a great near fall, falls up with the Mamba Splash for a near fall, gets the octopus stretch on, but then Finlay reverses, hits a pile driver, and then eventually hits him with the Oblivion and gets a win.
Yep. So, this wouldn't be the first time that we see, or this wouldn't be the last time that we see mist used on this show. So, apparently, I don't know, Japanese wrestling company, you're gonna see a lot of mist nowadays. I don't know, but the match was good, and this also kind of feeds into the ongoing feud between Bullet Club War Dogs and United Empire, which is going to culminate on the big New Beginning tour, 10-man steel cage match that's upcoming.
Yeah, New Beginning in Osaka. I had a couple questions here. At Dr. Annoyed Grunt on Twitter says, Josh is a horror movie fan. Can he recommend any good ones featuring an Oswong?
I don't normally look at the questions, but I saw that one just by chance, and I was like, do I? And then I realized, you know what? I've watched, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of horror movies at this point, and that I know of, probably more. I can't think of any that have the Wong or the ass wang. Like, and so I did a Google search, and like, I guess there's quite a few like notable Filipino horror movies. I've never gotten to Filipino horror, so I've never seen any of them. There's actually 2 movies called Wong. One is like a from 1994. I don't know if it's good, but it said it's like a forgotten horror gem. So maybe that's worth checking out. There's another one from like 2010, 2011. That's a little bit more mainstream. But I actually Googled like Wong horror movies, and there's some lists out there that kind of detail different notable Filipino horror films that are worth like, considering and watching. And I don't know, I might check one of them out, maybe, I don't know, but I'm not big on the gothic folklore horror necessarily. Like, it's kind of why I've never watched like Kwaidan and some of the Japanese equivalents that are similar. So I don't know if that's really my cup of tea, but I might check it out eventually.
Imp says, is TJP really the guy to take over the United Empire?
I don't think so personally. I like TJP as a worker, but I don't see him as being like the superstar guy that could carry the group necessarily.
Yeah, he's definitely a standout worker, and obviously him and Akira together, Catch 2-2, they're a great tag team. But yeah, I don't really see him filling that leadership role. And obviously we've seen junior leaders before, like Fergal Devitt with the Bullet Club, but I just don't feel like TJP is there. I don't think that would be the right move for the group.
And I've never seen an indication in the kayfabe from New Japan that they viewed him in such a manner either. It would really come out of nowhere, and I feel like could hypothetically, let's just say, could there be a scenario where you build TJP up to be a major credible threat the same way that Prince Devitt was? Sure, there's no reason why you couldn't do that, but now is not the time to do that in a month.
Right, yeah.
You got a month, and they haven't done that, and he's been working for this company for a good number of years at this point, and they've never told us that he is a top, just a top star, top guy in the company. They've never portrayed him that way, so it would be really out of left field right now to try and fit a circle into a square peg.
Yeah, his post-match promo, he did talk about, Ospreay's leaving, he's leaving the crown here to go conquer other kingdoms, and somebody has to pick up the crown, and it's going to be him. And so he's kind of positioning himself that way and coming all these promos talking about, taking leadership for the group. So it's kind of interesting that he's positioning himself that way. But yeah, I don't think that's what's going to actually happen. Someone's
probably like talking to Rocky. They're like, the fuck is TJ talking about? And he's like, I don't know, man.
Then Les Commission 7252 says, you guys think people don't really hate Dave Finlay, but just how the Bullet Club looks as a faction right now and how they looked 7 years ago?
Oh no, people don't like Finlay.
Yeah, because I see tons of praise for Gabe Kidd, Coughlin, Connors, Drilla. There's no like if Finlay was not,
there are people that praise him, but they're like contrarians.
Yeah, but if Finlay wasn't in the group, I think people would love Bullet Club. Like if it was just like
I still don't even know if that's the case. Like the creative is so all over the place right now. They don't have a unifying force for that group, and I don't know if New Japan's management really has faith in any of those guys that way right now. Like I know the fans love most of the guys that are in the War Dogs, right? But nothing in the past 5 years tells me that New Japan really believes in any of those LA Dojo guys. I don't think they do. I think they see them as like a kind of like, we got to use them. Otherwise they're going to leave and all this investment's going to be for nothing. But I don't think that they want to put them in that top spot. Otherwise they would have already done it at this point.
Yeah, we've talked about this, how it kind of seems like, the LA Dojo guys are kind of like the black sheep of the whole kind of dojo system and the roster. But yeah, they're super talented, and I feel like, if they gave Gabe Kidd like the leadership and he ran it and they actually got behind him in the group, like it could be really cool.
Yeah, but you know why? I mean, I think the major reason why, and I can't say this 100%. It's not like I know, but I have to imagine that management's probably looking at what happened with his mental health and, that breakdown and everything a couple years ago. And, how much do they see that as a potential liability? And maybe that's why they've never gotten behind him to that degree. Like they know he's talented, but they've never pushed him in a way that matches the talent that we as the fans see in him, And I have to imagine that that's probably a big reason why.
That's a good possibility. So moving on to the next match, we had the NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team Title match. The Guerrillas of Destiny, El Phantasmo and Hikuleo defeated the Bullet Club War Dogs team of Alex Coughlin and Clark Connors 12 minutes and 6 seconds.
Yeah, I believe also this was the point in the show where we got Filthy Tom Lawler on the call. I do want to say I thought that I like Veda Scott a lot. I think she's underrated as a commentator, and I can't think of any women's commentators in the history of professional wrestling that I've listened to that I thought were good. But then again, there's very few women that are notable that I can think of in any company that have gotten the opportunity, But I think she's really good. And I thought Walker was very good on this night as well. I didn't think the sound was tailored well for them. Most of the production was pretty good on the show, not up to New Japan, domestic standards, but it's a far cry from some of the snafus that
I turned on my Triller TV and it worked from beginning to end. There was no skipping, no lags, no delays, no pauses. You could hear the audio. I could hear everything.
Right. It worked, so it was good. It's not like anything that we're gonna tear down, but I did think the mics were peaking just a bit with them on the call. But one thing I noticed is I thought that Walker did a much better job on this show, incorporating the stories, but still calling the action, being that play-by-play guy, kind of leading the troop, and then Veda adding a lot of good color, and then Filthy is very underrated when it comes to just being the knowledgeable expert, the wrestler commentator. And I thought this team was very good here.
Yeah, really good team here. This match was pretty good as well. ELP and Hikuleo, I feel like they're really gelling well together as a team. So once again here, kind of feuding with the War Dogs here, and Coughlin and Connors had the black jeans on here for this match. And
I was surprised they didn't wear the trunks, but they wore the jeans.
Yeah. Like I said, they were, out for a fight here. And I think I'm starting to see a pattern now with some of these ELP Hikuleo matches where they just run roughshod in the beginning of the match. They're hitting all these big double team moves, and it seemed like they were going to beat these guys pretty quickly, but then they were able to come back. They kind of isolated Hikuleo for a little bit until they were able to get ELP back in there. Then they set up for the Super Thunder Kiss 86 and were able to get the win.
Yeah, and one, excuse me, one other thing too with the match is I had forgotten, last week when we were talking about why we were getting this version of the War Dogs versus, for instance, Gabe Kidd and Coughlin. And obviously Gabe Kidd was working later in the evening, so that all made sense. But I had forgotten that there was an attack that had taken place earlier in New Japan Strong. And so they did a little video package, and I was like, oh yeah, that did happen. So again, there are these storyline beat through lines that are running parallel to New Japan. And it's like this, they still paid it off. It's still, carried over. And I like that continuity. And it's, maybe I wasn't considering this particular group of the War Dogs, meaning Coughlin and
Connors
and Clark Connors, as being like the next challengers, but it had been well established before the tag league.
Yeah. So good stuff here. champs retain, and we'll move on. So next match, we had the NJPW Strong Women's title match. Julia defends and defeats Trish Adora in 13 minutes and 2 seconds.
I thought this was a really good match as well. I've heard a lot about Trish Adora. I know she's like the Pan-African diaspora champion. And, for me, I'm not the biggest intergender fan. I'm aware that a lot of people like it though, so that's cool. And I think she still holds that title. I don't think she's ever dropped it. But I'd never really seen Trish Adora. Like, she's a name that I know and I've seen her around, but I've never watched her actually wrestle. And man, she's imposing. Like, she is very physically gifted, and she just dwarfed Julia here. But
yeah,
both women,
it was crazy how much bigger she was compared to Julia.
Yeah, and I mean, Julie's not like a big girl or anything like that. We've seen her outsized in the past in other matches, but like from just a strength and everything, like stature, like she was considerably outmuscled by Trish Adora here. But these women, they had a tight match, just under 15 minutes, a lot of great action, very hard hitting. They started doing some crazy suplexes and big turnbuckle spots at the tail end of the match. And yeah, they really went for it. And I think it's probably one of the better New Japan Strong women's matches that they've had. Obviously not as great as last year's Mercedes and Kyrie match. It wasn't given as much time as that match was, but this was really, really great. Lots of great fire-ups down the tail end, and a very strong finish. I was impressed across the board.
Yeah, really hard hitting, really snug, and yeah, the finish was really good. So Julia goes to the top. She hits a super butterfly suplex, but Adora popped up at 1. Then Julia hit a knee strike for a near fall, and then Dora came back with the Mafia kick, but then Julia did the Northern Lights driver to get the win. So really good match here. Julia retains the title here. And then after that, the lights went out and we had a video from Mustafa Ali bringing his 2024 campaign to New Japan. He talked about Hiromu not being a great leader of the junior division. This guy comes out with a stuffed animal. He's crazy. He's a leader that has to be removed, and he's going to come and do it. And he challenged Hiromu for Windy City Riot, which we now know is official. So come April 12th, Chicago, we will get Hiromu Takahashi versus Mustafa Ali.
Great match, great direction for both of these guys. Obviously, Hiromu is a huge star, and putting him in a spotlight match in the U.S. on a big show like this is very attractive. But he also kind of needs some direction because he is no longer the IWGP heavyweight champion, so kind of needs something to spotlight him. And an introductory grudge match with Mustafa Ali sounds really awesome. I thought the production on this video was very, very good. It is funny though, and this is something that Hiromu, I guess, remarked online about. Is like he hasn't been coming out with a stuffed animal in like years. We're talking like a really long ass time, like since Fale ripped up Daryl and after that it was like he still did use the stuffed animals like in his like promos and stuff, but he really wasn't coming out with them too much after that. Mm-hmm. But it's been a long ass time, which kind of tells you like this man Mustafa Ali, like he's like, what do I know about him? Stuffed animals. This man is a menace. He cannot be trusted.
Yeah, but I thought the promo and the whole vignette was great. I'm really loving this whole Mustafa Ali kind of like presidential campaign run. I saw some videos from his some indie stuff he did this past weekend, and he has the Secret Service like walks him out to the ring. He has this cool music, and he just looks like a star, comes off like a star. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great addition to have in New Japan. Hopefully it's more than just Windy City Riot, but if it's not, it still should be a great matchup there in his home city in Chicago against Hiromu.
Yeah, and this wouldn't be the last announcement that we got for Windy City Riot, but I think it's a very smart decision on management's side to make some preemptive announcements for a big show like that. And it's one of the things we were worried about and criticizing last week, where we were like, well, this is just a few days after Sakura Genesis. We know they like to wait, until the previous show ends to make announcements. And it's like, fuck, what are we going to do? But they obviously they've taken that into consideration. Maybe they're listening to fans' voices. I don't know. Kudos if they are. But it seems very clear that we're getting a few of those bigger matches announced now so that they can build the rest of the card later, which is a very smart tactic. One last thing, too, with Julia. Stephanie Vekora is the number one contender. I think she could be a hypothetical candidate to lift the title off of her, but I wouldn't be surprised if her next title defense in Japan, whoever that might be, I'll just say it right now. Obviously, I'm not the biggest Stardom, I'm not the most knowledgeable Stardom person, but I was talking with Rich and I was like, I don't know what her health is like, but if she were to come back healthy, I feel like Tam could potentially be a name that you have take the belt off of her and then come back and be the representative champion here in especially considering those two women's history and her beating her and sending her off onto her excursion to the Fed. That might make sense.
Yeah, it could happen. So moving on to the next match, we had Matt Riddle and his mystery partner against the TMDK team of Bad Dude Tito and Zack Sabre Jr. So it ended up being his mystery partner ended up being Jeff Cobb. So they reunited the Chosen Bros tag team. They're a tag team from the independent scene, and the Chosen Bros.
You hit it on the head last week.
Yeah. And so they ended up reuniting and defeating Bad Dude Tito and Zack Sabre Jr. 11 minutes and 45 seconds.
Yeah. I wasn't sure who this was going to be, but you threw that idea out there. It might be Jeff Cobb. And yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah, which is kind of weird because normally, Cobb's in the United Empire. You normally don't kind of see like a guy from another faction just teaming up with another like a random guy on the roster. But obviously there's history there with the Chosen Bros. There's history between Riddle and Sabre, Cobb and Sabre. So it all kind of made sense here, and the crowd seemed to be very into Riddle. I know we kind of speculated that some of these crowds would boo Riddle just due to the allegations that were made against him and just some of his kind of public behavior, but reaction here and the reaction I saw at MLW seems like some of the core wrestling fans are totally fine with Riddle being on these shows.
Well, he never really did have any major backlash when he was working in the WWE. I'm not too surprised. You and I, Jeremy, we went to a Battle in the Valley a couple of years ago in the California area. It wasn't San Jose, but it was clearly not what you would describe as like a diehard New Japan fan base. It kind of mostly seemed like,
this Bullet Club.
Like Bullet Club fans or WWE fans
from 2017.
Yeah. So I wasn't too surprised that this fan base in this city didn't really react negatively to him. Now that might be different in like the 2300 arena, No,
I think that's where MLW was.
Okay. But even that might be a different fan base on that night than what you'll see from, a New Japan audience on that night. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see hardly any reaction. Again, at the end of the day, and this is me not, obviously I've gone on record and I've said, I think he did that shit. But a lot of people feel that they were allegations. They were never proven. And for some people that's enough for them to kind of just feel like this guy doesn't actually have an ongoing like investigation or anything. They're going to be fine with it. I also think that him being a big star from WWE and the talent level that is on display when it comes to Matt Riddle, which, say what you will about him. And this is, this, you could classify this in the same like conversation as a Chris Benoit statement. It's like Chris Benoit, horrible killer. Also one of the greatest like wrestlers that ever lived. And it's, obviously for a lot of people, you have to separate those two things there, and they don't hold bearing on one another. But Matt Riddle is one of the best wrestlers living today. And for a lot of fans, that's all they're going to see. That's all they're going to care about. And that's going to go a long way with them. Me personally, I don't need to see the guy, but it is hard to deny how talented he is. It doesn't justify anything that he may or may not have done, but a lot of fans don't give a fuck about all that, you know?
Yeah, I was talking with Rich. We were up together watching this, and it's like, yeah, man, this guy's gonna wrestle his way to forgiveness. He's gonna acquire the stars. He's gonna have these great matches, these great blowaway performances, and people are just gonna, never mind all of that. Like, this guy is great, and yeah, like you mentioned, it's hard. Yeah, he is so great, and like you mentioned, before the allegations, he was one of our favorite wrestlers. We saw so much great stuff from him here in Tampa, from Evolve, and stuff in WrestleMania weekends. Him and Will Ospreay WrestleMania weekend in New Orleans. Like, we've seen so much great stuff from Matt Riddle, and yeah, it's unfortunate also that he has that kind of baggage of the allegations and stuff like that. But yeah, like, you put that aside, like, the guy's an incredible professional wrestler, and from an in-ring standpoint, I think he's going to be a benefit in New Japan from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a few different ways to look at it. I mean, if you're like a fan who cannot separate the art from the artist and everything, that's totally understandable. And I mean, no one's gonna knock you for that. I feel like I'm pretty close to being in that camp myself. And then there are probably others who kind of view it more like he was alleged to have done something, nothing was ever proven, and that's about as far as it goes for them. And there are some people that see it as, his personal life and his artistry are two totally different things. So it's a tough subject, obviously, because there's a lot of different people that sort of feel different ways about it. For me, I can take it or leave it. I don't need to see Matt Riddle in New Japan. They've got a lot of talent as is, but to me, and I know I'm not alone, me and Jeremy hung out yesterday and we were talking about it. And we both came to the same conclusion watching this match. It felt and looked like if they wanted to make this guy the leader of the United Empire, like, they might go that way pretty easily.
Yeah, post-match, Cobb did throw up the crowns to him and kind of offer him to be in United Empire. Then in the post-match comments, they're kind of reunited and talking, and Cobb's like, is Matt going to join United Empire? Is he going to join Chaos? Hell no. House of Torture? Hell no. And they're like, let's go talk business. So, they went off. And so, yeah, it seems like they might be potentially teasing Matt Riddle joining that Empire, maybe taking over with Will Ospreay leaving.
I mean, if you're looking at guys who are of the star level and talent level to lead a faction in that way, Matt Riddle fits the bill. I know there's a lot of like fans of the faction that wanted it to be like a Jeff Cobb, or for it to be, Great Okan. But ultimately, you needed somebody who could potentially like be the world champion, and as talented as both those guys are, they haven't been portrayed that way either. And they don't have, like, they kind of have the same just different weaknesses and strengths, like, where Cobb is this incredible in-ring presence and this, and everything like that. He really lacks on the mic. That's like not his strong suit. And then like Okan's the opposite way. Like, he's also a very good in-ring worker, but he excels when it comes to the character work and to the promos and everything. But they don't see him as a worker, the caliber of a guy that, and with the body and the look of a guy that could be the world champion. Neither of those guys were ever going to be the leader of United Empire. And who knows if it will even continue, but it does feel like Matt Riddle might be that guy. Again, I don't know if Matt Riddle's sticking around long term or not. One, I think he could definitely fuck things up for himself, and and we don't really have to worry about him being around long term anyways. But the other thing too is Nick Nemeth, who also will be doing some shots for New Japan and recently showed up at Wrestle Kingdom. On this same evening, he showed up in the main event of Hard to Kill for TNA, And apparently he signed to a full contract and he's like contracted there. So that kind of answers some questions about like from what I understand, the reporting is that he will do dates for New Japan, but he's pretty much full-time contracted with Impact, and that's like his home promotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Riddle lines up in a similar situation at the end of the day.
Yeah, because also, these guys they're kind of from WWE. They need big money, and you're not going to get big money from a lot of places besides, WWE or AEW. So a lot of these guys are doing multiple kind of deals. So, Riddle, he's been in MLW, he's doing New Japan now. Yeah, same with Nemeth, he's done New Japan, he's doing GCW, he's doing Impact. So these guys are going to be probably doing multiple places, having maybe their quote unquote home, but then kind of wrestling all over the place.
Right. And I say that to say this, like, I don't know if they can make him the leader of the faction if he's full-time contracted in Impact. You know what I mean? Like, that's where it gets a little weird.
Yeah. But this was a really good match. Good stuff between Cobb and Bad Dude Tito. Fans are really into them doing power stuff to each other. Saber and Riddle's mat wrestling exchanges were really great as well. Came on to the end with Riddle hitting the Bro Derek pile driver onto Bad Dude Tito to get the win for the team.
Yeah, apparently Dave Meltzer has finally found out about Bad Dude Tito. So.
Oh, man, yeah. We've been singing the praises about Bad Dude Tito on this show for a long time now.
Yeah. We had a debate over who was the first to, talk about this guy in there. I'm pretty sure it was me, but Jeremy thinks it's
nah. Let's see. We had a question here from Lee Chang. It's Bay 2. Should Matt Riddle be the new leader of United Empire? Yay or nay? Ospreay's an AEW guy now, and who knows when he's coming back, so the faction needs a new direction. Riddle is great in the ring and already has ties with Jeff Cobb, and he wouldn't have to worry about the WWE or AEW snatching up anytime soon because of his scandals.
Me personally, if I'm New Japan management, I wouldn't put Matt Riddle in any sort of spot that there could be liabilities. And not because, it's pretty clear that the company doesn't give a fuck about the allegations and everything like that. But it's more like the history with this guy. And you look at, number one, in Japan, drug use, especially like marijuana, but well, actually not even especially, like that is a big one, but the other ones are also very bad as well. That's all I'll say when it comes to this guy. But like, what are the chances that he's not going to get caught up into some sort of issue? Like, he's already had so many interpersonal issues, and I just wouldn't put him in any sort of place of importance where the company stands to suffer from him being a liability personally.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a tough call there. Like you mentioned, they're going to push him as a big star, so they might see it as a good spot. But yeah, it could be a risky choice putting him there. And then similar question from Barry Wall says would they? Matt Riddle take over as the United Empire leader?
I think they could. I don't think it would be a smart decision, but
yeah. I don't. Allegations aside, I don't even think his character really fits the vibe of United Empire.
But they're gonna have to probably change their whole vibe because they don't have another Will Ospreay in their back pocket.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what they do. So moving on to the next match, the AEW Continental Crown Championship match. The champion Eddie Kingston and went against Gabe Kidd. They went to a double count out at 12 minutes and 6 seconds.
Yeah, very hard hitting, very violent. Two guys that wanted the smoke. I didn't like this match, truthfully, as much as I enjoyed their first match on New Japan Strong, but this was a little bit more like hate-filled and story-driven. They fought to a double count out at the end, and I'm not like a big proponent of countouts, but the 80s wrestling fan in me, when they're done correctly and utilized correctly, they can have a great impact. And this was one of those, Josh Smith countouts where I really liked this one. And I thought it was, especially the kind of the vibe behind it where Gabe is on the ground. It's pretty clear he's not going to be able to get up. Eddie could go back into the ring and win by a count out, but Gabe Kidd grabs the mic and he's like, "Is that all you fucking got?" Just starts cussing him out. And, Eddie sees red. They start brawling. Bell rings. Total chaos. Bedlam. They're brawling. I like that shit.
Yeah, this was, you mentioned hate-filled. This was very hard-hitting. Yeah, a lot of the strikes and a lot of big suplexes, brainbusters, great exchanges. These guys were going to war. This felt like a really heated blood feud. And then they brawled, like you mentioned, to the double count out towards the end there. I thought it was fine for it. Clearly, they're building to a rematch. And, probably as long as Eddie's Continental Crown champion, he's probably not going to be losing anytime soon. So maybe he loses the belt before the next time they wrestle, or who knows, maybe they work out a deal where Gabe Kidd gets this thing. I don't know, but clearly they're going to do another big matchup between these guys. After that, Coughlin and Connors came out, and all three of them beat up Eddie. Gabe did the pile driver onto Eddie onto the Continental Crown belt, and he was, throwing the Continental Crown belt around, and he grabbed like the strong belt because that's the belt that he really wants. And both their post-match promos are great. Eddie is talking about, he's not going to wipe the blood of Gabe off of the crown title. He's like, it's like a knife. When you kill somebody, you keep the blood on there. It's like the trophy. He's like, I'm going to keep your blood on here to remind myself of what you did to me, and it's this war, and, it's not finished yet. And he's like, I got friends. I got, crazy Puerto Rican friends, obviously kind of talking about homicide there. And he's like, I got lots of friends. You have lots of enemies. I'll see you again. So clearly they're going to build something bigger. We might even get some tag matches, bringing in Homicide and some other people in, kind of a faction warfare kind of thing.
I would love the idea long-term of them splitting the strong title out of the Continental Crown. I don't personally see the value of having the three titles unified. Maybe from a marketing perspective, they do. Because they can get that Continental champion to defend all the belts on the big strong shows and everything like that. But what's problematic for me is that you just know that unless it's an AEW talent, they're not going to lose the title. And that takes some of the intrigue from a fan perspective as a New Japan fan out of it for me. I think it would be better to just have the strong title either not be like, I would rather them just merge all those titles or split it out, one or the other. I don't like the idea that there are three subsequent titles all being defended simultaneously. It just gets murky when it comes to the New Japan AEW relationship.
Yeah, I don't need the strong title. I mean, I'm fine if they want to keep it, merged together, like merge it with the crown and just be one thing. Right. Fine. But yeah, it does kind of make it unpredictable when also you have a top AW guy coming in to face a New Japan guy. So yeah, hopefully that situation changes up. But love the stuff here. Love the promos that they did in the backstage. All that. The promos are up on New Japan World. So yeah, really great stuff from both of those guys there. Question here from Imp. He says, as someone from Nottingham, Gabe Kidd's aura is the best Knots lad representation there is. Who are the wrestlers that best represent your neck of the woods?
Oh man, I don't know. I mean, like, in Florida's weird, bro. Like, I really couldn't say. Like, it's either gonna be someone that's like really country, like so super like hick, or it's gonna be like a jet setter from like Miami, smooth type of person, or I don't know. Like Tampa can be rough.
Yeah, there's such like a mix of like a eclectic mix of people in Florida, even in Tampa, like it's Tampa in general too. There's so many mixes.
And it kind of lacks an identity to some extent. I can't think of anybody from Florida that I feel like represents modern day, like, Tampa Bay. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know who would be the best person to represent our state.
Can you imagine someone like wrestling, but like using all the slang and vernacular from like Tampa and everything like that? That would be like so sick.
Yeah. Dr. Lariat says, also, now we know the Continental Crown is unified. Do you think there's a possibility Eddie loses the belts in New Japan?
Is that officially confirmed? I thought that they were not.
I don't know. I feel like it kind of changes every day, or at least people say one thing and then it's actually not. I'm not 100% sure. Clearly, he's been defending the crown as one on his recent defenses, but he still has all 3 titles. It still counts as defenders in each title's lineage, so I don't know. But I have a hard time seeing him lose the crown to a New Japan guy.
Yeah, I don't see the point. At this point, until they make that firmly confirmed, it's very innocuous and it's hard to know what it actually is.
Yeah. So then following that, we had the no disqualification match as the Death Rider Jon Moxley defeats the Rampage Dragon Shingo Takagi 26 minutes and 16 seconds.
Yeah, this was an awesome match. I think for a lot of people, it's probably the match of the night. I'm thinking it's probably my match of the night as well. Just a really hard-hitting, crazy plunder brawl, lots of blood, fought all over the arena. I don't know. I feel like, Jeremy, you were a bit higher on this match than I was, so you probably have a little bit more to say than I do.
Yeah, I know. I thought this thing was awesome. We got a street fight gear. Shingo came out with the jeans and the knee pad over the jeans and the wrestling boots with the white shirt. So yeah, he looked great. Nobody told Shingo that Jon Moxley is 100 overall in no DQ matches. So pretty much everything Shingo tried to do with a weapon, Moxley was able to counter and take it from him. So yeah, beginning part, they were kind of dueling with the kendo sticks. You had Moxley beating with the kendo sticks, kind of jabbing the kendo stick in Shingo's mouth. They had the garbage can lids, the chain. So yeah, they were doing a lot of crazy back and forth stuff. Of course, they were bleeding. Shingo was actually bleeding first, and he's got the crimson mask on, and then eventually Moxley ends up bleeding. But yeah, they were going back and forth and just doing a lot of crazy stuff. Huge top rope suplex. Moxley with a big German. They were dueling with chairs. Shingo did a pumping bomber with the chain. Yes, and Moxley choked Shingo out with the chain. They're doing all this kind of cool, crazy back and forth stuff. Made in Japan on the chair. Death Valley driver to the table. Like, they're doing so many crazy, cool stuff, big spots. Then the finish came where Moxley did the elevated Death Rider onto the open chair to get the win. So yeah, I thought this was a great plunder brawl, hard hitting. You normally don't see Shingo in these kind of matches, and I thought he excelled here. And it was definitely a great bloody wild brawl.
Yeah, I thought the match was very good. I don't think I'm as high as other people on it. They definitely worked really hard and went out there and had a great match. The crowd was very into it. But for me, like, I felt like the beginning was a high point, and then the finish got incredible. Like, the last few minutes, like, high drama, really great stuff. But to me, I felt like it was a little bit sluggish in the middle. There wasn't too much that was happening in terms of the weapons use and everything that would separate it from like one of your better, like, let's say NXT Adam Cole level era, like, plunder matches, that you'd see on like a takeover, which those were all really good too. But it didn't feel like I was seeing something I haven't seen a million times. Me personally, I would have rather had seen Jon Moxley and Shingo Takagi have an actual straight up wrestling match. I feel like that, as good as this was, I feel like that would have been even better. But I think that the gimmick was a bit of an out for a way for them to kind of protect Shingo and have him take the clean loss because the match was a little bit more in Mox's wheelhouse,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of satiates the blood appetite of what they perceive, Western fans as wanting on these strong shows. So from that aspect, it was really good. I mean, the match was still great. I'd go 4.25 on it. I think I'm probably the low man. The close, though, I was a little bit lower than that. The close like elevated it for me, and I thought that they had a really 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 great close down the stretch. And there was one point where did he hit John Moxley with the Made in Japan? It looked like he was going to win.
Yeah, it was a great near fall there. Yeah,
or I'm sorry, what's his
the Last of the Dragon?
Did he hit him with the Last of the Dragon and he kick out?
No, I think it was just the Made in Japan.
Okay, he got close to that, and I was like, "Fuck!" I thought he was going to win, but yeah, great match, and the crowd loved it. Like they were really into it. It went like close to 30 though, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it depends on your taste. I know it's weird that I'm the blood guy on this show, and I'm a little lower on it than Jeremy, but yeah, I thought it was really great though.
Yeah,
I would have rather seen a straight match.
Yeah, I think a straight match would have been great as well. But yeah, I was into this. I went 4.75. It has like a 9 something on Cage Match. I've seen a lot of people throwing 4.5, 4.75. I saw somebody tweet yesterday it's their current match of the year. So this thing really got over with a lot of people, and people really love this match. So a couple questions here. Lee Chang is Bay 2 says John Moxley hasn't lost a clean match in New Japan since what? The G1 with Goto. I doubt Naito is losing the title this soon. I really find it hard to believe that they'll be stupid enough to give the world title to an AEW guy, right? I mean, if Tony Khan refuses to do business and let his guy lose, then will Tanahashi have to make him fear for his life? And so also here referring to post-match, John Moxley does call out Tetsuya Naito, says he's the one when he's a topple, it's time. And so it's official John Moxley versus Naito for Windy City Riot.
Yeah, so again, another big announcement for that show. And I don't know if this is covered in the news, Jeremy, but I was scrolling through X and I did see that there was an update for Windy City Riot. Right now, the current setup for that show is 3,530 tickets. Obviously, the building can be outfitted to do more, but that's what they're set up for. And the tickets distributed is sitting at 2,472. So in the past 3 days, they've sold over 800 tickets. There's just a little over 1,000 that are left right now. So it looks like, this show probably is going to do pretty well. I wouldn't be surprised with some of the announcements that have been made now, plus the market that they're in, that we might wind up seeing them expand the building to fit more people as the time approaches.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's in April. It's only January now. They already have 2 big matches. I think they could probably get to 5,000.
I wouldn't be surprised by that. So as far as, what's going to happen, I mean, I think that this is a really intriguing thing that they've done because obviously Naito's the world champion and you would have to assume, did they do the Gabe Sapolsky, like if he's the champion?
No, so that
it'll be for the title.
They are advertising it as a non-title match as of right now. Charlton tweeted on Twitter. He's like, "Yeah, we don't want to do false advertising. Naito still has potentially. He has a Sonata defense, and he's probably going to defend against the winner of New Japan Cup at Secure Genesis, which was the week before Windy City Riot. So this match is being advertised as non-title. It's going to happen regardless whether Naito's champion or not." But clearly, I think it's obvious that Naito will beat Sonata and beat whoever New Japan Cup winner is, and this will be.
Oh, you think so?
I think so. I mean,
I'm not convinced of that, and that's why I think it's intriguing because they have been. I think that it is very possible that Naito could lose that title between now and the time Windy City Riot comes, and this match is just a total straight up non-title affair because he won't be champion anymore. Now, I think by the time they get there, if he is champion, then yes, they might have him defend the title against Moxley, but this is pretty much akin to what used to happen in Evolve with Gabe Sapolsky, where he'd be like, if they're the champion on this date, then they will defend against this challenger. And without saying it, that's kind of what they're saying. And I think that's a smart idea because they were able to advertise a marquee match that's a huge deal. And if the title is involved at that time, it'll be an even bigger deal. But we have no way of knowing between now and then if that's the case. And so to me, I think the possibility of Sonata taking the title off of him goes up. I think it's up now. And I also think that the possibility that a new champion wins the title at Sakura Genesis and defends against somebody else on this show goes up. I think that this actually adds a new wrinkle into the booking pattern of New Japan entirely.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I don't know what bigger match you're going to do on the show. Also, clearly, Okada has to be in something. I'm sure Tanahashi will be in something, but I don't know. I feel like there's not really much bigger you can do, like a first-time matchup than Moxley and Naito. So to me, that screams like this is your world title match here. But I mean, anything's possible. Yeah, Sonata could win, or whoever wins New Japan Cup could win Sakura Genesis, and maybe that's what triggers Mox. Like I was coming after you because you have the belt and you don't now, so now I need to go after who does have the belt, and so
right,
that kind of continues.
I agree. I think you're correct. That's definitely a possibility, but at the same time, because it's already advertised, you could subvert expectations, have Naito drop the title, and then and then the fans are getting more money's worth when they announce the rest of the card, because it's like, in addition to this, you're getting a world title match where it's Shota Umino versus Okada or whatever, and then it's like, oh fuck, now I really want to go to this show. They could do that, and I'm not saying they will, but I'm just saying that who knows what's going to happen now. And that's a great thing to, instead of like the way it normally is, where it's like, all right, well, Okada's definitely being Sonata, and then he's definitely gonna, now it's not that. Now it's not definitely. Now it's maybe.
Yeah.
And I think the company has incentive to take the title off of him because they never advertised this as a title match. They could easily do a different title match now if they really felt the need to.
Yeah. Hawaiian Punch VV says, now that the Onita Mark himself, Deathmatch Shingo, made his debut, who would you like to see him face next?
We didn't bring that up, but I did love his little nod to Onita with his attire here in this match, which was pretty cool. I mean, in a perfect world, I want to see Shingo wrestle Kenny Omega, but I mean, I don't know if that's going to happen.
But as far as looking at deathmatch, I mean, I would rather that just be a straight up singles match. Deathmatch Shingo, put him in there with Desperado. Let those two be crazy.
Did we ever get Shingo versus Ibushi?
I don't think it did. No.
Fuck, that's crazy. I wouldn't mind if we're doing the deathmatch thing. I wouldn't mind seeing him wrestle Desperado. I wouldn't mind seeing him wrestle like Jun Kasai.
Yeah, do it on Taka Taichi Mania JTO show. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Any of that shit is all cool. Going back to that, one thing we should talk about, though, let's just presume that the match between Naito and Moxley is for the title. Because Lee Chang Bay asked us, any chance that like they're definitely not going to have Moxley like win the belt, right? That's what his assumption is. But Moxley hasn't really lost a clean fall since before his AEW deal. And, have we been saving that up to this moment and he's going to fail at the last moment in a big match with Naito? Or is that where you pull the trigger and put the title on a guy like Mox?
Yeah, it's interesting. I always felt pre-pandemic that they were going to set Moxley up to challenge for the IWGP title and potentially even win it and have a short run. So also, things a lot has evolved and changed since then. AEW's, grown since then. And yeah, I mean, I could see him being a guy that could win the title and then they could put the title on. But yeah, then how does that affect him making dates? We know that Mox is willing to travel. He's a guy that will go back and forth. He'll do the dates, but how many dates will Tony Khan actually allow him to do? What happens with the world title? It does kind of put things in flux. So yeah, maybe, I mean, if I'm New Japan, I'll lobbying either our guy is winning or you're giving us more dates on Moxley.
Right. I mean, I think that if they were to put the title on Moxley, that would need to be something where all those kinks are worked out and we're not worrying about him not being able to make dates because he's got to be at TV on Wednesday and then he's got to be there on Saturday and blah, 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 blah. You know, like it might be helpful for him, you know, and I don't know, I can't claim to be their business analyst, but like it might be helpful for him to go away for a little bit if needed. And I'm not talking a long time. Like you mentioned, it could be a short-term title reign where, you know, maybe he wins the belt, does a tour, loses the title at the end of the tour if need be. You know, that could be cool. But if we're running into another Chris Jericho or Kenny Omega absconding with the title for 6 months, never to come back, like that sucks. And they should not do that. But, you know, it really just depends on coordination and cooperation between these two different companies. And while I think the relationship is good, I definitely think that AEW has not exercised the ability to be the most like, what's the word I'm looking for? They don't always have their shit together.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it is. I mean, if you look at, and this is just one recent example, you look at the way that they've unrolled the Sting retirement tour. It's kind of all over the place, and it's like very, you know, it's a lot of stuff's last minute. They're not always disciplined. They don't have the propensity to be the most disciplined and have the communication that's needed for shit like this to work. I mean, it's fine if that's how their company operates, but it might not be a good thing to have one of their guys be our champion if we can't get dates on him, if it's not worked out ahead of time, if they're going to change things at the last minute, that all would suck. Yeah. So I don't know.
I mean, what you could do, you could have him win the belt here, and then Forbidden Door is only 2 months after. Bro, that's this.
Too long.
And you haven't dropped the belt there.
Unless, I mean, if you're going to have him show up in Japan and work the big shows, sure. But if he's not going to, and I'm not even one of these sticklers where it's like, he's got to be on the road twos. It's okay. He doesn't have to. You know, Jon Moxley's a pretty big star. It's okay. But if he's not going to defend in that month before, that's too long. He's got to be on the big shows. He has to. Like, there's no point in having the title on the champion if he's not going to, if he's going to win it here in America, never come to Japan to defend it, and then lose it at wherever Forbidden Door is next year. Like, and just be the Japanese champion, but just still be working all his dates for AEW and walking out onto their TV with our title, but never really even acknowledging what happened or anything. Like, that would be bullshit. They should not do that.
All right, moving on to the main event of the evening. The Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada, defeats the aerial assassin Will Ospreay, 28 minutes and 34 seconds, and which is probably going to be, at least for a while, the last time we get Okada versus Ospreay in a New Japan ring.
You notice how I was saying R? Like, I'm identifying with New Japan as the company. It's our belt. This was a really, really good match. I thought it was better by quite a large margin than the Okada Tanahashi match that we got last year in the same building. But I didn't think it was like the quintessential Okada Ospreay match. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I thought it was still great. I mean, those guys always knock it out of the park anyway, so it was still very, very good. Had an incredible video package leading into it. And in a certain sense, it was kind of sad because you always felt like this story was leading to being this generational tale of Ospreay usurping Okada in some way. I mean, a lot of people had a lot of different theories on how that was going to play out, when it would happen, how it would happen, yada, yada. But now we found ourselves at a point where, due to the circumstances of timing, he just had to lose to Okada, which makes sense politically. But basically, he got one fluky win on him by cheating, and then the other one was in a 20-minute time limit, G1 match, which was one of the smaller stages they ever wrestled on. And by and large, Okada just sunned him, and then he beat him again here. And it's like the story became what it didn't become a story of the rise of Ospreay. It became the story of Okada's just better than you. and you never, ever made it to his level, which that kind of story is also, I mean, there's money to be made in that kind of story too, but it just felt like we were always waiting for them to pull the trigger. And now looking back, it kind of made me feel like one of those, either the G1 final or one of those Wrestle Kingdom Dome matches, he should have beat Okada clean, and it didn't happen. And now here we are, and he's going off to take Tony's money. And, we're being told that, Okada is the generational guy, the defender of the company, and the best to ever do it. But now we're also worried about him leaving the company. So it was a great match. It really was a great match, and it was very emotional for those guys. But I was a little bit kind of bitter watching it because of that aspect. Also, this is something that I was talking to Rich today, and he brought up, could it be that Okada might be slowing down a little bit? Because the last couple times these guys wrestled, they just haven't been the same level as some of their higher end matches that we've seen. And I thought this one was great, but it didn't hold a candle to some of that stuff. And we know it's not Will who's slowing down. We know that. Yeah. Could it be Okada? I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he is getting older. Maybe not as crisp as he was, but I don't know. I thought that the match was incredible, and there's so many great counters they busted out there. Ospreay catching the drop kick into the powerbomb, the Rainmaker counters, Okada hitting a Stormbreaker onto Ospreay for a near fall, Ospreay doing the Rainmaker. So a lot of great back and forth stuff. The crowd was eating it all up. So the atmosphere was great. The counters were great. Yeah, everything was awesome here. Ospreay busting out the Styles Clash, busting out all the big moves here until eventually Okada hits him with one last Rainmaker to get the win. So yeah, really great stuff here. And then post-match, they hugged, kind of had their emotional moment. Then the War Dogs came out and Finlay hit Okada with the shillelagh, and then Okada just disappeared. He teleported to the back. And the War Dogs are laying out Ospreay, but then TJP, Jeff Cobb, and Eddie Kingston came out, and they kind of evened the odds there, sent the War Dogs packing, and that allowed Ospreay to kind of give his farewell speech to the crowd. Yeah,
very emotional. A fitting main event. I would go 4 1/4 on this as well. I actually think I liked this better than the Plunder match. Mm-hmm. So this was my match of the night. So, and again, this is all relative. When I'm talking about like people losing a step and stuff, I'm not like burying the match. The match was fantastic. It's just these guys have had 5-star classics, some of the greatest matches of all time. Mm-hmm. And I felt like this was another very fitting chapter to that story. I just didn't love the finish of the story. I think that it kind of felt lacking at the end, because it was like, damn, Will should have beaten this guy definitively on a big stage at some point. Now it's done for now. And that kind of, again, encapsulates how I feel about the usage of Will Ospreay in this company across the board.
Yeah, I mean, he should have beaten Okada. He should have had a longer world title run there. There's so much more stuff that they could have done with him. He should have won a G1. Like, there's so much that's still left on the table. They left money on the table with him. But yeah, this is how it ends for now. Well, we got the one more match in Osaka, the big 5-on-5 cage match. So that, you know, kind of promo about that and his farewell. And then post match, he kind of gave a farewell message to Okada, and he was like, you know, I'm kind of sad, you know, how our friendship kind of turned out, because, you know, you were so good to me, but I just had this bitterness in me in 2020, and that's why I turned my back on you, and I had to do all this stuff. He's like, but, you know, without that, I wouldn't become the man I am today. And yeah, kind of good stuff there. Good farewell to Okada, and kind of a good, I guess, not the best, you know, not the outcome we wanted, but, you know, we kind of tied a knot on the story for now, and ended with another great matchup. So we have a bunch of questions here. First from Rambo and Slam Pig. He says, as his primary stint in NJPW comes to a close, where do you think Will Ospreay's legacy sits amongst the various gaijin that have spent time in the promotion? Will he be remembered as an all-timer, or does the failure to capitalize and do more of him at his peak hurt that?
Well, I mean, yeah, that speaks to what I was just mentioning. I mean, in terms of like, what is his legacy going to be? I couldn't 100% define that, because again, we're not domestic audience watchers. I don't know how they feel. It's been pretty clear recently, some of these reactions he's been getting, where like when his music's playing and you hear the spray, like they're behind him. But I do think that, like, you know, they put the belt on him. It was during the pandemic. After he lost the title, they never ever gave him like a rematch for the title ever. Like, yeah, they gave him the fraudulent belt and had that, you know, 3-belt storyline with him and Okada and Shingo, but like he never got a rematch ever for the remainder of his time there, and kind of saddled him with the red belt, and he raised that belt to relevance and prominency. But the entirety of a lot of that time, he was taking a backseat to Jay White, taking a backseat to Sonata, who great talent. And actually, you look at the whole thing with him and Sonata, him and Jay White, and like that was what a lot of the quiet, you know, feud that was ongoing, not on screen, even though they had some matches, but it was like, who is going to be the top gaijin of this company in the wake of Kenny Omega? And it's very clear that the company was more invested in Jay White than they were in Will Ospreay. And really, they only went with Will to that level due to the pandemic. And then once the pandemic was over, they never utilized him that way ever again.
Yeah.
It's head scratching. Like you mentioned, Jeremy, there's things that they missed out on. He didn't win a G1. I mean, he never won a New Japan Cup. They never went with him as the tip-top guy in the company. And I think that that's a big reason why we never saw him beat Okada on that level, because had they had him beat Okada on a big stage, similar to Naito, similar to Tanahashi, similar to Kenny Omega, similar to Jay White, then they would have had to solidify him and put him in the main event and pay him like the main event and treat him like the main event. And they never planned to do that. And that's unfortunate. And so I feel like he'll probably be looked at in a lot of ways similar to like Prince Devitt or like Dynamite Kid, you know, one of the top performers they ever had. But he's not going to be viewed like Hulk Hogan or Andre the Giant or, you know, guys that, or like Vader, that were like their tip top stars that they like pushed to that level and gave them long title runs and shit like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the kind of from a modern fan base, I think like, you know, people watching now, I think, you know, 20 years from now, we're going to remember Will Ospreay's run in New Japan, all the great stuff he did there. And I think, you know, he, at least from an in-ring standpoint, you know, surpassed guys like AJ Styles and kind of hung in there with, you know, guys like Kenny Omega kind of on the same level, maybe even surpassed Kenny in some points. But yeah, like you mentioned, from more of like the push standpoint of the top star, yeah, it's not quite the same because they didn't utilize him. But yeah, I think he's going to have a great legacy in the company. I think regardless, he's going to be remembered as one of the top wrestlers that they ever had. Yeah, he's definitely going to be an all-timer. Next question here from Kryptonite says, Battle in the Valley 2023 saw a faction leader leave NJPW, and now 2024 is as well. So my question is Battle in the Valley cursed, and who is leaving next year?
It's January. That's just what happens in January.
Yeah. Rambo and Sandpix says, has your opinion of the working relationship between AEW and NJPW changed after Wrestle Kingdom and Battle in the Valley? Do you believe it actually is, or at least appears to be, more equitable than in the past?
You know, I was listening to fellow podcast of the Social Suplex Podcast Network, Trish and Sarah. They had a very interesting discussion, and we're talking about the thing with WWE and them trying to get a foothold in the Japanese market. One thing they mentioned was, you know, the reports that they are trying or were talking to New Japan are true, that might add a bit more of an equitable note to New Japan, because even if they don't decide to work with WWE, the very fact that they're in a bargaining position, that gives them maybe potentially some more leverage in the relationship with AEW than they had prior. I wouldn't say that is a catalyst for why we saw anything that happened at the Dome take place. You know, I think they were always building to Danielson losing again. And I think that, you know, Mox didn't even get pinned clean. So I wouldn't say it's equitable, but I'm sure that it's not falling on deaf ears, the complaints from the various fans about the portrayal between these two companies. But long term, do I think that AEW is going to bend over backwards and make it more 50-50 going forward? Like, no, nothing's going to change. Like, they're the big dogs and we're a little homie.
Yeah, I mean, it has been good to see, you know, at least Brian giving the win back to Okada. And then here, you know, Gabe, you know, fought Eddie to the draw here, and Ospreay losing here. But technically Ospreay's still a New Japan guy here. But yeah, hopefully as the partnership goes and continues, we will kind of see things a little bit more in favor, especially as we're seeing more AEW guys show up on New Japan Strong shows. Dragon Master Adam says, out of 10, how good has NJPW's 2024 gotten off to? I'd say about an 8.5.
I'd agree. I think that I don't think that they've had the most hype surrounding them coming out of these two big shows, but they've had some momentum, and I think that's good. It's going to be interesting to see how that's carried through to the New Beginning tour, because they got a lot of shows, a lot of dates, and they've got 4 big shows during that time frame, and they don't all look as good as each other. So it'll be interesting to see what you know, January and February looks like coming out of that and going into like Fantascomania.
Yeah. Similar question from Def Triangle 720. How do you feel about the trajectory of the company right now?
How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in a good spot right now. I thought Wrestle Kingdom was a great show. Battle in the Valley was a great show. So, you know, 2 big great shows in the books. There's a lot of interesting angles right now. I mean, the War Dogs versus United Empire is very heated. They're setting up, you know, the LIJ fans are excited for the Sonata Naito rematch. You got Nick Nemeth coming in, Mustafa Ali coming in. There's like so much buzz, I feel like, with those kind of new guys coming in, and they're setting up some big feuds. I feel like, you know, we're going to talk about the New Beginning tour here in a second. I feel like, especially on the Road 2 shows on the Corkin, there's a lot of big like singles matches. So I think they're telling a lot of cool stories. There's a lot of interesting matches. There's a lot of cool title matches coming up. So I think right now they're kind of hitting good momentum. I think that they need to kind of capitalize on it and make some, you know, wise booking decisions on some of the younger guys, and they could end up having a really great year this year. The Discord Daddy, MJ Does PR, says, seems like NJPW has been listening to the feedback from everyone about how to book shows in the U.S. Do you think the quality over quantity model is a more sustainable approach for NJPW in the U.S.?
Hard to say. because I don't know what the actual profits look like versus the costs, you know?
Mhm.
I mean, we've seen situations multiple times over the past couple of years where they do these smaller venues with 2 nights, you know, back to back, sometimes even more than that. And you have to imagine that part of the reason for that is, you know, profits. So I don't really know what the business model looks like in terms of like what they're bringing in, what's going out. From a fan perspective, though, yeah, I think the quantity versus quality, I think quality is better. I think them having, especially like if we're at a point where the weekly TV is not going to happen, they're not going to get some sort of streaming deal, they're not looking to get a real television deal, then having big shows kind of supported by your partners like AEW and CMLL, along with like your, you know, Western guys, that's better for the fan experience. I also don't know what that looks like for the pocketbooks of some of the New Japan quote unquote strong talents. Some of those guys, like they're getting less work, they're getting less dates, less opportunity. And then if they're far between the shows and they're not going to Japan, how are they going to get over? How are they going to get you know, familiarized with the audience? We've already seen Filthy Tom Lawler and Fred Rosser work their way down the cards when they're two of the bigger names from the strong brand, and like some of those guys that you used to know, they're just not around anymore because there's less opportunity for stuff like that, which, you know, that's understandable. But I don't know what's going, me saying all that is I don't know what's best for the company, but I know for the fans this is probably the more enjoyable experience. But I don't know what's going to be more sustainable. I think probably whatever profits the company the most, you know, at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that the whole quantity versus quality thing. I think quality is better, and I do like that. You know, for Windy City Riot, you know, one of the big complaints we've had is like, you know, not announcing a card ahead of time, waiting a week out, and now, you know, we're 3 months out from that show, and they've announced 2 big matches, and it seems like they're going to be announcing more, and we're going to get, you know, these cards announced ahead of time where they're going to do fewer, bigger shows. We're going to be able to get, you know, Ospreay versus Okada type matches and Naito versus Moxley. With less shows, you can do bigger matches like that. So I think that's the way to go. He also asked Mustafa Ali, Nick Nemeth, Jack Perry, who will have the best run in NJPW this year?
Hard to say, but I mean, like, Nick Nemeth has the AEW machine behind him, or I'm sorry, not Nick. Jungle Boy has the AEW machine behind him, so you'd kind of have to expect him to be a bit more protected. And I think he could probably at this point, and all three guys are very talented. But if I were to say like who has the highest top end when it comes to match performance right now, and that could change, but right now I'd probably say Jungle Boy. So he probably has the most buzz and interest, and he's got more of a corporate backing.
Yeah, probably from the buzz standpoint, Jack Perry. From the in-ring standpoint, I would probably say Mustafa Ali. He's just a really great talent who was underutilized in WWE, and I think if he's going to do a lot of dates, he can have end up having a really great run. Then last question here from Barry Walsh. Do you find it a little short-sighted or anything with the fact of New Japan is bringing in names like Riddle, Ziggler, Ali, and Jack Perry, but all 4 members of the War Dogs are allegedly now out of contract? I know the two might not be connected, but wouldn't locking down its own young talent make more sense than bringing in presumably expensive names that probably won't stick around medium to long term?
Yeah, I think that even if hypothetically these guys are on per date deals and they're not as lucrative as you think they might be, speaking of like the new signees, just from an optics standpoint, it doesn't look good for those individuals that are in the midst of renegotiation season and they're seeing these bigger names being brought in and being paid well and being given higher spots on the card than they are. Um, it's just not good optics. So, and if it is a case where they're throwing money at those guys, I get it. It's enticing to have new, exciting outside names that are familiar to other fans to kind of build buzz around the company. But you could also do that by, I don't know, investing in your talent, booking them better, telling great stories, giving them opportunities, and paying them well. So yeah, I could see both sides.
Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap up our talk about Battle in the Valley. Now let's jump into the New Beginning Tour. So we're going to have the first show of the tour this weekend, January 20th, from the Aichi Prefectural Gymnasium, the New Beginning in Nagoya. Show will kick off with Young Lion action as Katsuya Murashima will take on Sho Maketo. Then we'll open up with Shota Umino and Tomoka Hanuma taking on the House of Torture team of Ren Narita and Yujiro Takahashi. Then we'll have the United Empire team of Callum Newman, Francisco Akira, Hanari, Jeff Cobb, and TJP taking on the Bullet Club War Dogs team of Coughlin, Connors, Finley, Drilla, and Gabe Kidd. Then we'll have Desperado and Master Wato taking on Sho and Kanemaru. And then, as announced today, we will have the NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team title match as the champions Girls of Destiny will defend against Chase Owens and Kenta. Then we'll have Okada, Ishii, Tanahashi, and Makabe taking on Fujita, Nichols, Hayes, and Sabre. Semi-main event, actually a 7-match, will be LIJ, will be Bushi, Hiromu, Shingo, Naito, and Yota versus Doki, Sanada, Taichi, Taka, and Uemura. Then the semi-main event will be for the provisional KOPW title as Ishimori will defend against Great Okan in the 10-minute Ishimori Ring Fit match. So 10 minutes on the clock with the last title holder at the end of the time limit being the victor. Additionally, at 3-minute intervals, the two must stop for 30 seconds of high-intensity circuit training. Then the main event will be the never open weight title match as Tama Tonga will defend against Evil.
Yeah, so of all the bigger New Beginning shows on this tour, excluding obviously like the road twos, this is probably the weakest of the cards. Very much so filled with a lot of preview tags, kind of setting up the rest of the tour. Previewing a lot of the bigger matches that are going to be on those big shows. I am a little surprised that the Bullet Club versus GOD tag match is again for just the strong titles, and it's not necessarily encouraging when it comes to the idea of how fans wanted to see them either unify those belts or defend them simultaneously. The fact that they're just defending the strong titles for the last two defenses, that's kind of precarious.
Yeah, and they are defending the IWGP against them in New Beginning in Osaka. So I feel we might be getting a situation here. Maybe Kenta and Chase pull a quick one here, win the strong tag titles, and then they retain the IWGP in Osaka.
They're working against themselves if they do that. I understand their inclination to want to do that, get the lesser. They already did that last year when it came to the War Dogs, and they did the exact same scenario. So I get the reasoning behind it. I just think it's short-sighted. You already spent the time to put both titles on the champions. I don't see the value in having all these different tag titles and multiple champions. Like, just have one strong champion, and no pun intended, but just one strong title holder who holds both belts. Like, that's better.
Yeah, I don't understand the need for needing to have two tag titles now and defending both separately. I think it would be better to unify them, especially with them doing less strong shows. And I know Rocky said, he wants weekly TV, but it doesn't seem like that's the direction they're going. So at this point, why do you need strong tag titles? Why do you need a strong open weight? Why do we need a strong women's title?
Also, why do I have to see this match twice on the tour? Like, I didn't even want to see it the first time. Now I'm getting it twice. Like,
so nice. They booked it twice.
As far as the KOPW title match, we voted on both the NJPW Global pull as well as the Japanese pull. And we were very much in favor of Great Okan's bull rope death match. Like, why are we getting this comedy shtick 10-minute high circuit? And this thing won by a landslide. Like, people want to see this shit. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't understand. Like, it's so like, there's so many vocal people that complain about KOPW and all the stupid stipulations, but then overwhelmingly, the 70-something% voted for this Ishimori ring fit. It's like,
you know what it is? It's like those fans that are like, do you see the fucking 24/7 title change last night on Raw? So great. R-Truth won the title from Becky Lynch or whatever the fuck, Yeah. That's what this shit is. It's terrible. And then, Tama Tonga versus Evil. It's weird. We just saw Tama Tonga come off what I thought was the match of the night in the Tokyo Dome against Shingo. And now we're going to see him wrestle Evil. And we know what that means. And Evil's going to win. And Tama Tonga's leaving the company. So also, by the way, now since we're here, we should just talk about it real quick. This past week, they removed Tama Tonga from the New Japan website, and then changed Evil's profile to being the never openweight champion. And the amount of people I saw online that were like, "What's going on? This is crazy. I'm getting to the bottom of this." Like, bro, it's a fucking angle. Like,
yeah. So many people got worked. Oh yeah, I need to do research. I gotta do this, long column about this. Like, dude, yeah, it's an angle. Before they even showed the video, like Evil hacked this thing, and then they showed the video. He got in there, he broke into the office, he bullied Charlton and the other guy to update his profile and delete.
Also, Chris Charlton's a coward, bro. You stand up for what's right, Evil stole the IWGP World Heavyweight title late last year and then released merchandise with him as the 8th champion.
I'm the real champion. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, anyone who wasn't I don't get it. People are getting worked. They're stupid. But, it also they probably are going to remove Tama Tonga from the roster. So it probably just happens to be a happy coincidence. Like, well, it saves us some time. Plus, it's a good angle. Let's just get him out of there.
Yeah, let's do this early and turn into an angle. Oh man, so not the best card of the tour here. Expecting Evil to probably win. Guessing Ishimori's maybe gonna retain. I don't know.
I'm not going to predict anything aside from what we already know, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who wins that KOPW. It doesn't matter who holds the strong title. I'm sorry to be the negative Nancy, but I just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I watched the show. Hopefully the multi-man tag matches that everyone complains about, those are good because I like those, and I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But I'm not overly enthused for the strong tag team champions. Chase Owens and Kenta and KOPW 10-minute high interval, hit fucking matches and Evil shenanigans. This is the shit we don't like from New Japan. It's all rolled into one show.
Yeah. Well, in the following night, we'll have night 1 of the Road to New Beginning, January 21st. So open up with Marishima versus Kato. Then we'll have Chase, Kenta, and Ishimori against ELP, Hikuleo, and Jado. We'll have Coughlin, Connors, Finley, Drilla, Gabe Kidd, and Gato versus Callum Newman, Akira, Great Okan, Hanari, Jeff Cobb. We'll have Fujita, Nichols, Hayes, and Sabre versus Okada, Ishii, Tanahashi, and Hanma. Then we'll have Oleg Bolton, Umino, and Tama Tonga versus Dick Togo, Evil, and Narita. And we did have a question here from Young Line 95. Says, was it a bad idea for Ren Narita to join House of Torture? I feel so. For example, Sho should have been the face of the junior division, but House of Torture.
Gotta let it play out.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, it's been fine so far, but it could get worse. And then after that, we'll have Desperado, Wato, and Makabe taking on Sho, Kanemaru, and Yujiro. And then the main event will be Bushi, Hiromu, Shingo, Naito, and Tsuji versus Doki, Sanada, Taichi, Taka, and Uemura. And then some other...
So before we get to the rest of the tour before we record next week? These are the only 2 shows airing?
Yes.
Gotcha. And then I should let you guys know who are listening. I am taking my Series 65 test this coming Friday. So that'll be my final, for now, licensing exam for me to be a financial advisor. So hopefully I pass that shit. hopefully I'm not sad watching these House of Torture ass shows.
Some other key matches on the Road to Tour. So January 23rd, we're going to have the IWGP Junior title match. Desperado will defend against Kanemaru, and we'll also have a singles match with Sho versus Master Wato. Then the 24th, also in Korakuen, will be Shota Umino versus Ren Narita. So Umino finally getting his hands on Narita one-on-one. And there's also going to be Naito and Hiromu versus Sanada and Doki. Then February 4th at Korakuen, we're going to have the IWGP Junior Tag Team titles on the line as Catch 2-2 defends against Clark Connors and Drilla. Then Dave Finlay will go one-on-one with Callum Newman. Hanare one-on-one with Jeff Cobb, or with Gabe Kidd. And then Cobb will take on Alex Coughlin. And then February 5th at Korakuen, there's going to be a big gauntlet match between LIJ and Just 5 Guys. And we had a question from Les Commission 7252. With all the key matches set for the Road to New Beginning tour, do you think throughout the year that management should feature 3 to 4 key matches to make their Road to shows feel more important?
I think it depends. I'm not opposed, obviously, to adding more importance to these shows. And, you know, it is a rarity to see singles matches in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So getting more of these, maybe this is, who knows, it might be like a mandate from Tanahashi. Hard to say. But I don't think it always is needed. You know what I mean? I think it depends on what level of Road to show and what the tour looks like. I know that some fans would love to just be getting a lot of like major singles matches, you know, all the time, but they're special for a reason. And if they're on every show, they're not special anymore. And I think it's okay. It is okay to sometimes have Road to shows that are actually just previews, because let's remember, at the end of the day, a Road to show is essentially a house show that you don't necessarily have to watch, but you do get rewarded for watching them. It's okay to have some more important matches from time to time on them. It's also okay to sometimes just let them be house shows.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, they are televised house shows. That's why you see a lot of the same matches, because they're doing the same match in different cities. So every city can see the same match, get the story. So when it comes to the big show, all cities are clued in. But yeah, I'm down though with them doing some of the bigger singles matches here, and we're getting some title matches. We're getting Despy defending a junior title. We're getting a rematch of Catch 2-2 and War Dogs. So yeah, it should be a fun Road to tour. And then we'll have the New Beginning in Osaka as the next big show. That'll be February 11th. And we got Yo and Yano against Oleg and Taguchi. Bishamon will take on Newman and Great Okan. Hanuma, Wato, Despy, and Umino will take on Yujiro, Narita, Sho, and Evil. Bushi, Hiromu, Tsuji, Shingo, and Naito will take on all Just 5 Guys. Then we'll have the never openweight 6-man titles on the line as TMDK, Hayes, Nichols, and Vegeta will challenge Team Hall of Fame. Then we will have the IWGP Tag Team titles on the line as Chase Owens and Kenta will challenge ELP and Hikuleo. Then we will have the big rematch between Zack Sabre Jr. and Bryan Danielson. And then the main event will be the big 5-on-5 steel cage match as United Empire's Catch 2-2, Hanare, Cobb, and Ospreay take on the Bullet Club War Dogs.
It's going to be interesting to see what those rules are like. If it's going to be like war games, or if it's going to be like first pinfall loses, all guys in at the same time. What's the apparatus even going to look? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that card. And so we'll give more predictions and preview closer to that show. And then we have 2 nights of Sapporo coming up, February 23rd and 24th. Not all the matches are booked yet, but so far for night 1, there's going to be a pre-show Frontier Zone match. Then Bushi, Hiromu, Tsuji, Shingo, and Naito will take on Just 5 Guys. And Matt Riddle will challenge Tanahashi for the NJPW World TV title. And then Nick Nemeth will challenge Dave Finlay for the IWGP Global Championship. And then on night 2, we'll have another Frontier Zone match. And then Taguchi and Nick Nemeth will take on Gato and Finlay. Bushi will take on Taka. Hiromu will take on Doki. Tsuji will take on Uemura. Shingo will take on Taichi. And then the main event will be Sonata challenging Naito for the IWGP World Heavyweight title. So essentially night 2 is it's pretty much just 5 guys versus LIJ in a single series there.
Great. Well, let's jump into the news real quick. So big news story, Kazuchika Okada has filed a trademark for Rainmaker on January 12th. Okada submitted a filing to the United States Patent and Trademark Office for the name of his finishing move. Michael E. Dawkins is listed as the attorney of record. The purpose of the filings are listed as entertainment in nature and for wrestling contests. So basically, to make it short, Kazuchika Okada has, trademarked the name Rainmaker. And this kind of caused a lot of a stir. We've got a question here from Lee Chang is Bay too. Is Okada trademarking Rainmaker a sign that he may actually be leaving the company? That could explain why he and Ospreay were so emotional after their match. Ospreay is going to AEW, so he'll have opportunities to come back to New Japan unless Okada himself is leaving, like to the WWE.
So I don't think it would be WWE because we know how they are with trademarks and owning people's names and stuff like that. So if he's trademarking Rainmaker, I think that kind of takes WWE off the table, but clearly he's trademarked it in the US, so for US use in wrestling. So does that mean he's leaving New Japan? I'm not sure, but it does seem like he wants to do something in the US. Maybe he gets a part-time AEW contract, or we saw him at TNA recently. Maybe he's going to do something in TNA, or maybe he is leaving New Japan. I don't know, but it is kind of alarming that, he is trademarked the Rainmaker, as something in the U.S. for wrestling use. Yeah.
One thing I will say is I'm of the other opinion. I don't think that WWE is off the table because keep in mind, this is a different regime than it was with Vince, and Okada is such a big star, and if he is hypothetically thinking of jumping to the US, he would be in the middle of a gigantic bidding war, which would provide him a great deal of leverage. So hypothetically, if he was smart, and I think he is a smart man, and he wanted to trademark this name, it would benefit him potentially regardless of whether he signed at WWE or AEW, and he may be able to own that trademark regardless of whether he went to WWE or not. I do think it's there's no question it's alarming. The guy would have no reason, and I've seen some cope online, and I've seen some people trying to, play mental gymnastics. It's very clear. There's no reason to trademark that name in the US unless you plan to make money off of that name. And there's no reason for a purely central, if he's just like, I'm all in on New Japan, that's all I'm doing, and I have no other aspirations, there's no reason to trademark that name. This combined with the Barry Bloom stuff, very scary. Especially for us. Like, he's kind of the silhouette of our fucking logo for the show. Like, God.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but like, we've spent some money recently that have incorporated that logo into shit. And I'm like, why the fuck did we do that? Like, we should have had Tanahashi on the front of the logo.
Yeah.
This man, we knew he wasn't going to leave. Like,
never count out the ace. Should I just had Tanahashi, doing this, on the logo.
Yeah. That was a mistake. But I think that there's smoke to the fire that he could be leaving, and it's very alarming if you're a New Japan fan. Moving on, New Japan added 5 classic Bryan Danielson / American Dragon bouts from the early 2000s to the NJPW World Archives. We have them listed. I'm not going to name all the matches, but if you go in there, they've got them all cataloged right there. You can check them out. Most of the stuff's going to be from his 03 to 04 run, and most of it is tag team action. There's one singles match from 04. I noticed they didn't include the famous U30 title match between him and Tanahashi, which you would think if they were going to upload anything, that might be the big match. That's like the big match he had in the company back then, but whatever, it's not there. So maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe it's coming.
That's going to do it for the news. We got some questions and then we're going to get out of here.
Yeah, so Barry Wall says, supposing Nick Nemeth is signed up for a while, if he got the non-War Dog BC members to turn on Finlay, would you think he would make a good BC leader or better than Finlay? If the worst happens and the LA Dojo guys go, then what else is there for the War Dogs anyway?
I don't think, based on the recent announcement that he's signed with Impact, and maybe that's not 100% accurate, but my belief is he signed with Impact. I don't think he's going to be Bullet Club leader regardless.
Maybe he can lead Chris Bay and Ace Austin. They're still...
yeah, they could do that. But the other thing, too, is they just invested all this time and money into the idea of Finlay being the guy. And it's really all he has going for him at this point. If you take the leadership role away from him, I know a lot of people are calling for them to take it away. But what do you have left if he doesn't have the Bullet Club behind him anymore?
Yeah.
There's really nothing there. So all your investment was for naught. I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah. SSJ5 Goji Tunk says, how big is Batista's heart?
Lion-sized.
Let's Commission 7252 says, last year I had gotten 1 out of 3 of my predictions right. I predicted that the Bullet Club would have a new member, and what came were the War Dogs. This year I have 3 more predictions I hope to get right. 1, Zack Sabre Jr. will end up taking the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship from Naito or win the G1 this summer. Bryan Danielson, Claudio, and Eddie will come back to Japan and be in this year's G1 when they will do the 4-block format once again. And this will be Tanahashi's last G1.
Could happen.
All interesting predictions there. Lee Jang is Bay 2 says, so I just watched the Ibushi Marufuji match recently, and my God, Ibushi is washed. This man was missing spots before he broke both of his ankles. Look, I'll be honest. I thought he was washed when he went to AEW, out of shape, and was blowing spots there. But I love Ibushi too much and was in complete denial. But now you can't deny it. He's washed. Injuries or not, that man has lost a step and can't go like he used to. So was Ibushi spontaneously leaving New Japan an actual good thing for him and the company in the end? I think if Ibushi was this bad in New Japan, it would have been worse for his legacy.
I don't think that we know everything about the severity and the struggles of the injuries that Ibushi has kind of endured and what that road back to being an active wrestler even looked like. So it's really hard for us to kind of say what ifs and everything like that. I haven't seen this match. I'm probably not going to watch it just based on what I've heard from everybody else. I love Kota Ibushi. He's one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And I think he's one of the most complete and perfect wrestlers I've ever seen. And maybe it could have turned out differently had he stayed, but this is what it is. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, he was washed when he was in AEW, because we don't know everything that went into his health. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a doctor. I don't know what kind of rehab he went through. I don't know what kind of ailments he was suffering from and what that road back looked like. And it's hard for me to say, yes, this guy just doesn't have it anymore, or if for me to be like, maybe some of it was ring rust, or maybe he still had lagging injuries. My feeling is that, and this is just speculation, but my feeling is that this is a breakdown of his body more so than a breakdown of him having the ability to perform. And what I mean by that, I know that sounds like it's the same thing, but what I mean is that given enough proper recoupment and given enough time and care, I don't think it's impossible that we couldn't see a proper performing Ibushi once again, or could have. I don't know what it looks like now that this has taken place, but I felt like at one point, everyone was like, oh, he's washed. And I'm like, I think it's a little too early to say shit like that. I think a lot of people just want to be early and this is kind of a happy coincidence for that crowd at this point. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think he has lost a step a little bit. And again, like to your point, we don't know, where he was on recovery, because the shoulder injury was really bad, and maybe not fully recovered. Clearly, he hasn't been able to lift like he could, because he's not as jacked and shredded as he was pre the shoulder injury. So yeah, there's a lot going on, probably a lot that we don't even know about. But I feel like if he did not have the shoulder injury, he probably still would have been going at the rate he was, and still probably would have been great. But that injury was really serious and totally derailed him. His other question says, not New Japan related, though they did spend some time in Japan, but did you guys manage to catch the Iron Claw movie? I just saw it this weekend and thought the movie was pretty good. The Von Erichs were actually my dad's favorite wrestlers, and he thought the movie was pretty good too, though he was confused why there was no Chris Von Erich. Anyways, what do you guys think of the movie? If you've seen it, who was your favorite brother, and do you have any match recommendations of theirs, whether it's in the US or in Japan?
Yeah, I saw the movie. I know Jeremy did too. I liked it. I think that for people that didn't know the story, this was a lot more impactful for them. For me, I don't know. I'm a bit of a film snob. I love A24, and I thought they did a great job with the film, but also the historian in me was just like the whole time being like, fuck, there's so much that's inaccurate. Like, it's hard for me to separate the real ongoings from what I'm hearing and seeing in this movie. And then at the same time, I'm not the biggest biopic person in the world. I think that there are certain tropes and just, the beats that fall into every biopic picture. And in this one, like, I thought that the first like 2/3 were really great. The last third, even though that's obviously when everyone's dying, I just felt like it just happened so fast. Everyone's just dying, and there's really no time to reflect or figure out what's causing it. I thought the acting was good. Jeremy Allen White as who I love, from The Bear and from what's the show from Chicago where him and the kids, I don't know, I love that show too. It's from Showtime. I forget what it's called, but fucking him as Carrie, hard to kind of, especially since he's smaller and shorter than everybody else in the family. Like, I don't know, that was a stretch too far, but yeah, I thought it was an entertaining movie. A lot of people I went to see it with loved it a lot more than me. There were a lot more like taken with it. I saw people shedding tears. I didn't cry, and I'll cry at most anything, and I wasn't that like emotionally moved by it. So I thought it was good. I thought it was a good movie. A lot more people liked it a lot more than I did. It wasn't like one of my top movies of the year or anything like that. I thought it was a solid movie.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good movie. I mean, it was depressing. Obviously, I was familiar with the story. I know the story going into the movie, but just like watching it, and obviously I know it was not historically accurate, but still kind of captured some of the key parts of the tragedy of that family. And man, yeah, it was just kind of sad, just kind of seeing, like you mentioned, like boom, loss after loss after loss. Was pretty sad there. And so, but yeah, I mean, overall, yeah, I thought the acting in the movie was good. And, a lot of times wrestling movies are not good. And so, yeah, I thought that they kind of captured some stuff that was pretty cool, and kind of how they were able to incorporate some real footage in some of the scenes and stuff like that. But yeah, overall, it was a fun movie. I don't really have a favorite brother. So like, I never really watched a ton of Von Erich stuff. Gone back and watched. I don't have any match recs or one guy that was like always my favorite. I did play with them a lot in one of the Legends of Wrestling PlayStation 2 game. They were fun to play with in those. But yeah, I don't really have a favorite brother. I don't have a ton of nostalgia for the Von Erichs. That's a little bit past my time, and I never gone back into my history on them.
Yeah, I've watched quite a bit of their stuff. I mean, if I had a favorite brother, it's probably Kerry. I get it. I understand everyone. Like, Mike was the athlete. Kerry was like the superstar with the charisma and the body, and like David was the most complete worker. And people that believe the WWE propaganda say he was on the track to being NWA champion. I don't think that was ever the case, but I do agree. I think he was the best talker, and I think he was the best worker for the time period. But the reality is, nobody peaked as high as Kerry. Kerry could actually have a 5-star match with the right opponent, and that was something nobody else in the family on tape ever did. So I mean, like, and plus I'm a '90s kid. Like I grew up watching Texas Tornado. I like Kerry Von Erich. I always have. In terms of matches that are great, anything that he did with Flair is top notch. The 2 out of 3 falls match from 1982. I think August is near 5 stars. Obviously the December 20, I forget the exact date. I don't know if it was Christmas night. I think it was, but the December match with the steel cage match in Dallas, which started off the feud with them and the Freebirds. That's one of the greatest like cage matches of all time. That's incredible. Um, him and him and Flair at Texas Stadium. It's not as good as their other work, but just given the stage and everything and the nostalgia around it, that's really fantastic as well. But they got a match from Hawaii in 1985. That is a true blue 5-star classic. I'm talking like there's no doubt it's the greatest match that Kerry Von Erich ever had, and it might be one of Ric Flair's very, very best matches. And you can probably find it on YouTube. I haven't watched it in years, but it's Kerry Von Erich versus Ric Flair 1985 Hawaii. That's the best match they ever had. That's really incredible. Kerry also had a really great match. He defended the title in 2 out of 3 falls match against Jumbo Tsuruta in All Japan Pro Wrestling. And that's a blowaway match that a lot of tape traders and collectors really loved. The matches with the Freebirds, they had 2 on January 4th. The first one was in 83. That's a 2 out of 3 falls match. That's with all the original lineup of brothers. And that's a fantastic match. That's for the 6-man tag team titles. But the next year they had a bunkhouse street fight with Mike replacing David. And that match is really awesome. It's like 10 minutes, crazy action, like crazy, like one of the craziest brawls from the 80s you'll ever see. And that match is also well worth your time to check out. And there's a ton of matches with those guys in Dallas. I could go on and on, but those are probably like some of the bigger recommendations. I know that they did have some work in New Japan as well later on, but Kerry versus Jerry Lawler in 88 at Super Clash, where like Kerry's just fucking coked out of his mind, and like he accidentally like ruptures his bicep and he's bleeding everywhere, but like Lawler still guides him to like probably a 4-star classic. Like, yeah, that match is great too. There's a lot of them out there.
So last of the questions here from Hawaiian Punch BV says Musashi announced that he is leaving Michinoku Pro soon. Do you think he'll join NJPW after touring with them last year? How badly will Michinoku Pro be hurt now that they won't have their 2 aces there? Fujita Junior Hayato also needing surgery to get rid of his cancer again.
Also, I just want to throw out there's some really great Harley Race matches with those guys as well. I don't follow Michinoku Pro. I didn't even know Musashi and Fujita Junior Hayato were like their aces. Makes sense though. Doesn't sound good for them. And I'm saddened to learn about Junior Hayato needing surgery for cancer again. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I saw that. I think that popped up recently, last day or two, that, yeah, he has to get surgery again. So, yeah, that is sad for him. And, yeah, I guess maybe they are bringing Musashi into New Japan, did that whole Super Juniors tour, teaming with Yo. I thought he was fine on the tour. It didn't really blow me away, but, I mean, it's always good to have fresh talent, new guys do matchups with. So
there's a hair versus hair match with Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez versus the Von Erichs. That's really good too.
And the last question here says thoughts on Better Biev versus Bivol being discussed at Riyadh after Ramadan. Early predictions for the fight.
Very historical fight. Probably would crown the greatest fighter in the history of Russia. At that point, I really don't know, because stylistically they're so different from one another, but they're both so complete and perfect. There's not quite stylistically the same, but there's definitely the the boxer versus the puncher element. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Ali versus Frazier. At this point, like Bivol is so fantastic, but I don't know how you bet against Better BF. 20 fights, 20 knockouts. This is unheard of in the history of boxing. And he's doing it to top world-class competition. And like, yeah, I could see either guy winning, but I feel like Better BF, if he connects, he'll just fucking knock this guy out. So I really don't know. It's a pick 'em.
All right, then last thing here, recommended match of the week. So last week we recommended Tomohiro Ishii versus Masa Kitamiya from Noah the New Year. And then we also recommended the Stardom IWGP Women's title match with Mayu Iwatani versus Shuri from their January 4th show.
Yeah, I watched both of these prior to the recommendations last week. I didn't go back and rewatch them. I intended to, but that's okay. I saw both of them, and I was really blown away by the Masa Kitamiya and Tomohiro Ishii match. I thought that was just really fun, really hard hitting. It's something we've wanted for a while since we've seen these two guys first lock up in the Noah ring, and finally seeing the payoff there was really fantastic. And they gave, I mean, this was like your quintessential hard hitting Ishii style match, but he's in there with the bruiser like Kitamiya, and I just loved it. I thought that this was the match of the night for that Noah show. If you haven't seen that match, you need to see it.
Yeah, it was awesome. I watched it today before the recording, and yeah, it was awesome, hard hitting. Man, the big headbutt that gets Masa split open. I'm like, man.
There were headbutts in both of these matches that I did not like.
Yeah, the Mayu gave a big headbutt to Shuri on the top rope. But Ishii and Masa Kitamiya, you definitely should go all the way. And man, every time I watch Noah, I'm like, man, I love the presentation, like their production, their camera work. Like I love their nameplates when they throw up like the stats in the middle of the match. Like, all right, this guy is 48, he's this tall. Here's his finisher move. It's like it just adds to the presentation, and their English commentators are pretty good as well. So yeah, really enjoyed everything about that matchup. And yes, how crazy hard hitting, great fighting spirit, near falls, and Ishii hits a very nasty brainbuster to get the win there. And then yeah, Shuri and Mayu was great as well. And this was very hard hitting, very intense. Mayu pretty much was dragon sleepering Shuri into another universe here. But there are so many great counter moves, like you mentioned, the big headbutt there that Mayu gave was a big clunker there. But yeah, there were very stiff strikes here. Mayu was going for the moonsault several points throughout the match. Was able to hit it, get a near fall. Shuri was hitting a lot of her strikes. She did a very cool Kimura off the top, super Kimura into the submission, which was pretty cool. But yeah, Mayu eventually hit her that super poison Rana thing to get the win, which was a really cool finish.
That finish is just fucking phenomenal. You know, I struggle watching Stardom kind of connecting with what's going on because there's always so much like emotion and there's people crying and there's nothing. I'm not judging that. I'm just saying, like, as a viewer, I always feel like I'm missing the context of what is going on with the greater stories that all these different characters are on these paths. I can kind of tell that that's going on, but I don't get it totally. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a little less simplistic. Like you turn on a CMLL match and the story's right there. You know, I mean, it's self-contained. It's not as strung together. And that's not even criticizing it, but I always feel like, damn, I feel like I'm missing something here. Like, why are these girls crying so much right now? But the action in that match was really phenomenal. I do think the match was, I saw some of those early scores and I was expecting something a little bit higher, but it was still really phenomenal. Where would you go, like, grades wise on both of these matches?
I'm like 4.5 on both of them.
On both of them. Wow. Yeah. So already we're off to a pretty strong start for excursion match of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not far off from there either. So yeah, definitely recommend both of those matches. If you haven't seen them, you should go out your way to see them.
All right. Do you have anything for us this week?
I think I do. Do you?
Yeah, I think I want to recommend us watching this the American Dragon and Curryman versus Taguchi and Goto junior tag title match they just put up from March 21st.
Okay, awesome. And then I am going to recommend the Tomohiro Ishii versus Luke Jacobs match from Rev Pro on December 16th.
Okay.
So check that out. Also, there was a really we'll get to it, I'm sure, but there was a really fantastic match from Dragon Gate this past week where Shingo Takagi wrestled Mochizuki in his, I think, 30th anniversary match. So kind of getting to see those two guys lock up again in Dragon Gate. It's fucking wild.
Yeah. So yeah, that's be fun. We'll definitely check that out in the future. All right, well, that's going to wrap things up for us here this week. Next week, we'll be back to review the new beginning in Nagoya and cover everything about the upcoming tour. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On X, follow us at KI Strong Style, at Social Suplex, and at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, follow us at facebook.com/Social Suplex and the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy, and Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. Join our Social Suplex Discord server to interact with us and other wrestling fans. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio with Richard Latta and James Boyd. All Things Elite with Floyd Johnson Jr. and Austin Sumowitz. Imp's WWE Adventure with The Implications, Matthew Mayer. Wrestling Art with Chris Slings. Tunnel Talk with Allie, Ann, and Leah. And the Trish and Sarah Wrestling Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Hit your bone.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.